approach to that.
Okay, we are live.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, hold on a second. Iwo Jima moment.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the prayer. Grant us, O Lord, light in our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority, and we may use it to our directives for the common good, for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Call to order. Roll call, please.
Kim Saba,
Here.
Vince Cronin,
Here.
Dr. Ritu Sharma,
Present.
Shannon Sharma,
Here.
Sherry Falkenberg,
Here.
Nancy Morrow.
Thank you. It is 7:05. Tonight's work session will be the hiring policy and procedures for the Village of Timberlake and repealing and replacing various sections of the codified ordinances and going over zoning fees
And budget.
and budget. Okay, thank you. Okay, first thing on the agenda is Resolution 2021-07, a resolution implementing a hiring policy and procedures for the Village of Timberlake, Ohio, and rescinding previous hiring policies and resolution declaring an emergency. We all have a job description or the hiring policy that we all have. Okay. So begin with comments and suggestions.
I have a question. Is there going to be a separate hiring policy established for the police department versus people for the service department?
I don't think that was the intention behind that. I think that was supposed to be like kind of an all-encompassing. But if we think it'd be wise to do two separate ones, we could certainly do that.
I definitely do. There's a lot of different steps to go through hiring police officers versus people for the service department.
That makes sense.
I agree.
Okay. Chief, do you want to then, sometime in the near future, shoot me an email? Kind of broad strokes, what that process looks like, and I can draft something based on that.
I have found some paperwork in a file cabinet that I'm not sure who was putting together what's referred to as a background investigation packet, which would be, to me, it should be standing separate from the application packet itself. But we don't actually, at least I'm not aware that we have that in existence yet. I have found drafts, but yeah, there's definitely a lot more paperwork involved in hiring a police officer versus a service department employee. And I can send you an email on that.
Okay.
A lot of departments or a lot of cities don't actually have the hiring procedures as a police officer, or for a police officer rather, as an ordinance or a resolution. That's more or less just a policy and procedure within the department.
Correct, but I just want to make sure that yeah, we do have an employment application that's a general one for the whole village, but I didn't really understand whether this was intending to make a village ordinance for police, or is that still going to remain within the police department?
Well, it's the policy is just a policy. What everybody has in front of them isn't an ordinance, it isn't a resolution. But yeah, we have to pass a resolution to put it in play. But it's not an ordinance, it's just an internal policy. So
okay, I just want to make sure that I'll still have an internal policy for, all the forms for background investigation and drug testing and all of that separate.
Yeah, no, we can definitely do that. Like I said, if you want to just shoot me an email with kind of what all that encompasses,
That's
I
fine.
can draft something up, shoot it over to you for your review, and
Okay.
once we like what we have, we can present it to council for their approval.
Okay.
Here's, I'm gonna share this with John. You might want this, chief. These are things that we're.
Anyone else have any questions or comments on the rest of it?
Right.
Yeah, did we ever change that section E2, the interviewing portion? Because I had a question about where it says, the one I'm looking at still says, the mayor, along with a member of the relevant council committee, will interview candidates.
No, I did update that. I believe I sent it out to everybody on Wednesday, but changed it to the mayor, like the mayor along with the relevant committee.
Correct. Yeah, I have that copy. Yeah, you
Specified
did
that it's the whole committee, not just
Okay.
one member.
Yes.
Okay, I must not have seen that, but okay, good.
But I believe that's the only change I made to it recently.
That wasn't that draft, correct?
The latest one I sent out on Wednesday, correct?
Right,
Right
right,
here.
right.
Down here. Okay. Anyone have any other questions or comments on the rest of it? Well, how many more readings we have on this one? Another one or two?
I think we have one more. I think our next meeting will be the third reading.
Okay. And then again, if we have any changes, we can amend it at that time, correct? Before we pass it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or at any time going forward, if it's in place and we find out, hey, this part isn't really working, we can amend it, but at least we'll have something in place, something to go off of. And it's always easier to make little tweaks than kind of rewrite the book, so to speak.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, anyone else have anything on that? On the policy and procedures? Okay, next is ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance repealing and replacing various sections of the codified ordinances of the Village of Timberlake and declaring an emergency. I think we'll start out with the packet that Kim Saba gave everyone. We've gone through this. We go through each page here. I guess, Jason, you guys will take care of the first two pages with the listed directory of all the officials and all that, correct?
Actually, that's part of my job.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And that, just so you know, you have a heading, that heading you read. Jeremy and Jason will have to critique it, that ordinance that that you did there.
Okay,
I just came up with a heading so we can just get it going.
right, got it. Okay. Okay, the first thing here, I guess, that we have to look at is the public records retention policy.
Correct.
What are the suggestions for revising that? Is there anything we need to follow in Ohio Revised Code that we need to
That
change?
is the one that we got to put in. Did you get that, Jason, where we passed it last year? The new one?
No,
Okay. That's what I got to get over to. We have to get that to you. That'll be, or at least to them.
but when it was passed last year, was it sent, I believe, I don't know if it's the Ohio Historical Society or the State
yes.
Archives or, the RC2, they have to
Right.
approve it?
Yeah, we got that back. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, as long as they approved it, it should be, I mean, unless there's tweaks we want to make to it, it should be good to go if we just did it last year.
Yeah. So I didn't know how we want that section to read. That.
Oh,
to-
you said, okay,
See what I'm
yeah,
saying?
maybe we just update it to show that we did it last year, not, 2015 like this one says.
And maybe take out attached to resolution number 2015-15. We'll find out when I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we can either get rid of I don't think we need to necessarily state what ordinance passed it. But But yeah, I can update that language.
Good.
Okay. Okay, the next
But
on the
Joanne,
list.
sorry, Mayor, Joanne, can you send me over the RC2 that was passed last year?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Give me a day or two to find it. I'll get it to you.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Next here is section 240.17, policy for special policemen. Chief, do you want to?
Can we change the title of that to policy for special police officers? I mean, there are police women besides policemen.
Yep.
And then further down the page, down to J, upon completion of probation.
Wait,
the special,
Chief, what about going back up to number C was our question, where it says
Right.
minimum hours worked. Do you want that in there?
Agree with this.
I'm not, hold on.
C, it says upon successful.
Wait a minute, let me read it.
Yeah.
OPADA's, we changed our ordinance, I think, when Chief Esser was here. Our ordinance used to mirror OPADA's mandate, and that is 16 hours a month.
That's the reason why I wanted to ask that. That's why we got the question mark.
I can't understand what you're saying.
I said,
You're
that's
going in
why-
and out.
That's why I put the question mark there, because I didn't know.
Yeah, Joanne, I think something's wrong with your connection. Your the sound is really choppy.
This is the new laptop.
Sounds
Better?
better now.
That was
Okay.
better right there, yeah.
I guess I just gotta lean up.
All right, Joanne, for now, can we just leave it the way it is and revisit this down the road?
Ask Jeremy and Jason, because we're trying to get it worked out so we can submit this for, we have to pay a cost for this book. That's the reason we're trying to get everything corrected.
Then we'll leave it at 24 per month.
Okay. I mean, you got another month. We're only doing the second reading in April, so you got till May if you want to change it.
Okay, thank you.
And then we weren't sure about G,
Gee.
The next page.
and then go to your other one.
No, you can take G totally out of there.
Jason, are you making the notes so you can know what to change?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can take J out of there also.
Got it.
Okay,
How about 240.19? Since we supply the cell phone.
wait a minute. Let me see what it is. 19.
Little notation to the right says remove all.
Yeah. I wasn't even aware of all of this. I mean, is it necessary to have this in here?
That's what I was thinking, take it out, because you guys have the cell phones now, don't you think?
Yeah, I do.
This hasn't been followed for 3 years. I would say take it out.
All right,
Repeal it completely.
yeah.
Yep, A, B, C, and D, I guess, all of it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, chapter 244, records clerk. You have on here, remove.
I was thinking, yeah, remove it all because we don't have a records clerk. We don't pay anything special.
Okay, I agree. How about Jeremy, Jason? What do you guys think?
Wait a minute, is this the records clerk definition in the police department? Or
No,
is that
No.
separate? All right,
separate.
Okay.
It should say, I want her to follow it. Because chapter 244,
It's all in that packet there, yeah.
all right.
Okay,
Let's go to 260.
see. All right, 260 now.
I mean, does anybody know
Oh,
I guess this was passed back in 2008. What was the idea behind the records clerk? Was it just village records in general? Was it public records, or does anybody know?
That's why I asked, because under the police department, there actually is a category for records clerk. I don't, so I'm not clear if this is blanket for the whole village or records clerk. I personally wasn't here in '08, so I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I don't think this is in regards to the police records clerk, because it's got its own chapter. It's not in the
Right.
chapter talking about the police
Okay,
department.
so what's the purpose of it?
It's a good
the
question.
mystery.
That's why we're taking it out. That's why.
because that's what it says. It's cross-referencing the public records policy and records commission one.
Okay, so do we need it?
That's why I'm saying take it out. See where it says cross-reference that, and I'm like, that's where it goes to.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, all these two ordinances say is that the position's established and its duties
Yeah.
and responsibilities shall be, established by the mayor and approved by council. But if we've never done that,
No,
I
all
don't,
right.
I don't see any harm in removing it.
And we can always reestablish it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to section 260.13, duties of fire engineer, engineer superintendent of markets, compensation. Is that, oh no,
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no.
The next
260,
one.
next one,
Good one too, yeah.
260.14. Sexual harassment policy.
well, I don't even know what the one above it is either.
True, yeah.
But it says ORC code, so I guess we better leave it alone.
We don't have a fire engineer. I mean, so,
I know, but it says ORC code number. I think we probably should leave it alone.
Yeah, and the ordinance itself says if the village has one of these, so it's almost just a placeholder,
Okay,
in case we ever did.
okay.
gotcha. Okay,
In 260.14, I actually went ahead and drafted a new sexual harassment policy, because this one definitely needed some
I agree.
updating. It's a little over 20 years old. It's drafted. I didn't get the opportunity to submit it and send it around, but I will do that tomorrow. So council and everybody else can review the new sexual harassment policy. But the biggest thing this one's missing is a nice, clear reporting procedure. Obviously you want to prohibit, the policy says that, we prohibit sexual harassment, any kind of harassment. But the big one, as far as liability for the village, is making sure you have a clear and concise reporting procedure. If somebody does feel that they're a victim of harassment or sexual harassment, options of people that they can make that report to, and then the requirement that it then be investigated.
Okay.
okay.
And plus, Jason, I think that's already in that village officer's handbook that came out in 2018. So that's obviously, if this one's from 1999, the one that we have in the village officer's handbook from 2018 is probably going to be way more updated, because at the time that was updated. So, I mean, I think I've sent that to you and Jeremy a couple times for cross-reference. So even if you want to take it out of there, that's fine too.
Yeah, and we'll take a look at that. We write these policies for a lot of people, so we read all the case law changes by the day. We actually do training on it. So we'll look at the village officer's handbook too, to incorporate. But what we'll write will be the most up-to-date possible policy, but we'll look at that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, and just recently, in fact, the law is not even in effect yet. Ohio kind of revamped their discrimination laws, and they changed a lot of things, but important for this discussion is there's now a statutory defense for harassment claims. And essentially it's a complete defense if there was avenues available for the individual to pursue, and that they didn't take advantage of those, so essentially if we have a concise and clear reporting procedure in place, an employee is going to be essentially required to use that first before they go straight to court and try to sue everybody, essentially, is what you do in a harassment claim. So all that's to say is it's just very important to have a clear and concise reporting procedure. And then obviously, all the claims have to be investigated. But that's what the new policy will address.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Anyone have any questions or anything to add to that, or you want to see included in that? Okay. Next, we go on to chapter 278, volunteer police officers dependent fund board.
We have to keep this. This mirrors ORC.
Yeah, this is an Ohio Revised Code thing passed in 2016. Any government entity at all, whether it's a county, township, village, city, if you employ voluntary officers, you have to follow this voluntary peace officers dependence fund.
Okay, just want to make, that's why we put the question there.
Yeah, no, yeah, I had to look into it myself.
In the beginning, when this fund was established, Timberlake was required to contribute to the establishment of the fund. No police department or village, city, whatever, contributes again until someone suffers the loss of a police officer anywhere in the state. If it happens anywhere in the state, Timberlake will have to contribute to the fund to replenish the fund.
Yeah, so that's in the statute too. It's not in our ordinances, but it's in it's chapter 143 of the revised code. If anybody has some free time, wants to read it. And yeah, there's a mechanism. So once the fund dips to a certain amount, then the director of commerce can ask for further contributions.
Correct. That is correct.
And those contributions are all based on the property valuation of the entity. So if it's less than 7 million, it's $90.
Our Timberlake's contribution when this was started was $400.
Okay. Okay.
If you read the specific language, there has to be a president of our board and a secretary. And John Kleinheinz serves as the president, and I served as the secretary until I was promoted out of the unpaid status. But it's something that has to be kept up with the State Department of Commerce yearly. As far as identifying, as secretary, I always had to identify on a yearly basis how many volunteer police officers we had and how many total members of the police department we had.
Yeah, so I mean, I think on the next council agenda, we should put something about, making sure we have all the spots on that board filled and that, we're kind of clear on what that board's function
Well,
is.
the filling of the board slots is up to the volunteers in the police department. It has nothing to do with council.
That's not the first, no, it states here, 2 board members elected by council.
Council picks 2. The
then a
volunteer
resident.
peace officers pick 2, and then of those 4, they pick a 5th that has to be a resident. So
Repeat that again.
I've been on the board for the last few years. I know we haven't gone through it this year, and I believe the resident that we've had, Sue, you would probably know this. I think it's Debbie King, isn't it?
That's correct. We haven't changed the board since it was first established. But yeah, in general, this whole thing needs to stay in our ordinance books.
Absolutely.
Good.
Exactly as it's written.
Yeah, it essentially just mirrors their Ohio Revised Code. So yeah.
Correct. I just, we're all new and everything. I just want everybody to be aware that in the event there is a loss of life or someone is permanently disabled, then we have to come back and revisit this because the Department of Commerce we have to replenish our share of the fund.
And just so everybody knows, that expenditure is not budgeted at all. So good thing you said something because I never knew, I knew that, Sue. That's the reason why I put the question here.
I mean, to establish the fund in the beginning, it was $400, but in the event there's a loss of life suffered, I doubt that we would have to contribute an additional. It depends, actually, Joanne, it depends on the officer involved, so to speak, as to how many dependent children that officer has. Because if you read how it's doled out, it depends on the number of dependents the officer has as to what the state pays out.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but as far as what's coming from the village, Joanne, it's, so after that initial premium, nobody has to pay anything until the basic capital account dips to 95% or lower.
Uh-huh.
And if that happens, there's additional assessments. If you want to look at it, it's 143.07. And those additional contributions are based on the property valuation of the entity.
Okay.
So it's as low as $90 to as much as $150.
Okay, kind of like the fire volunteer one.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's
That was
regardless of, our village could have no claims at all, but if
Yep.
other entities have them and it dips below, everybody's got to pony up that extra amount. But at worst, we're looking at $150, but
Okay.
that's if you have a property valuation of 28 million or more. Which I doubt we're there, but maybe we are. I don't know.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Okay, anything else on that before we move on? Okay, next is in the Building and Housing Code, 144.06. Insurance. You have a note here, cancel, question mark, a dollar amount. So this is for contractors registration, or what is this for, this insurance?
Where are we at? I'm sorry, Mayor.
144.2.06. We're into kids' questions, I think some of them are now.
Why is that 4 digits?
No, 1444.06,
Everything else
yeah.
in the code book is 3 digits.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, so this is talking about insurance for a contractor. And so 144.05 is the bond that's required. And then 144.06 is insurance requirements.
What happened to our 140? What
Are we
happened to our actual
questioning the-
fees? What happened to 142.11 fees on that?
Joanne, you're breaking up pretty bad.
What happened to going talking about the zoning fees? Or doing that
Joanne,
stuff?
I think your connection might be bad, Joanne.
She's questioning about 1442. We went over the whole section and jumped right to 1444. I believe that's what she's trying to say.
I
Yeah,
think we're sitting too close to her mic.
Try that.
Yep, that's good.
That sounds good.
So we're looking at, I was asking about 1442.11.
Here it is, 144.211.
Was dealing with all the zoning fees.
Calculation, okay, this is the zoning fees themselves. We're talking about permit fees?
Yes, all those fees, yes.
Okay, and then Joanne, you put together a spreadsheet that showed all the different various villages and townships that had different fees for their permits.
And then
And then we
you
went
did
ahead,
some.
right, so did you send out a revised one for anyone to look at or not yet?
Did Vince, did you get the zoning fee stuff?
Yeah, it's on the one on 1442, right after number 11, right?
Mayor, did you send out the one that you did the proposed, what you thought to everyone?
No, I just sent it to you as you requested.
Yeah, we should probably try to get that to everybody. I mean, and it's fine. We can go over them and get an idea. And I can even verbally say what was proposed.
Okay. You want me to forward it now to everybody? I got it here.
Yeah, if you'd like, that would be great.
Okay. Gone. Your copy. See how fast the email gets to you guys.
Chief, Chief, Chief,
Yeah, you can.
Chief, do you want to see the zoning, the fees and so forth? It's up to you if you want it.
So Kim, did you have any modification changes to the ones I proposed there?
I mean, I think this, again, council needs to discuss what, we're expecting for permits out of our residents. And, I did some phone calling around to other villages and even some larger cities. And, they have cut back on the permit issues for the fact that it comes down to not always having someone that's certified to do the inspections. Now, I get that somebody can inspect a fence and those types of things, but, when it's inside your home, if you're not certified plumber, they can't come in and inspect a hot water tank. If they aren't a certified electrician, they can't come in and inspect your wiring. Those are things that go through the county. So, that's kind of where it's at. I still think that, we could do things regarding the driveways, the driveway aprons. They've got things for basement waterproofing, that were on that list. I think that we should go over them and determine if the village is more about the residents or making revenue.
Well, it is a good source of revenue. I mean, last year, Gary Gray did. over
I
$8,000
understand.
So,
I do, but
and
I'm
again,
just
all the
saying,
permits he gave were basically, none of them were electrical or plumbing, which have to go through Lake County anyway. Because again, we're not authorized, we don't have inspectors to do those inspections. But all the ones he gave were just basic ones that, as far as, when he gives a fence, make sure that it's on the property, it's not infringing on the neighbor.
I understand that. So my question is, I get a deck, a fence, if we start at the beginning, the household dwelling, that type of thing, this is where it comes down to if If a contractor is registered with the county, the way Eastlake does it, if they're registered with the county, they don't charge a contractor fee. They only charge them a contractor fee if they're not registered with the county and the homeowner insists on them doing the work. So they have a $125 fee for that purpose. But if they are a licensed contractor with the county for that year, they don't have that charge. So, I mean, the new deck, a new fence, I get those. I don't have a problem with that. You know, the outdoor pool above ground and in ground. I mean, is what it is. But that's another thing, Jason, that we do need to talk about. We have absolutely nothing on our books in regards to the safety for swimming pools. So we really need to get that addressed because, I mean, not only am I putting one in, but, you know, my neighbors have them and, you know, it just comes down to the safety of children or whoever else is around. So we definitely need to take a look at that. Joanne and I looked those up and there's some sort of a information in the codified book about referencing something maybe the village paid for at another time. But when we went to it, it was a paid service that you had to get the information off of. So
Yeah,
I
I would say that that OBOA that it references there in swimming pools. It's the 1996 version that's adopted in Timberlake's ordinances. And try for the life of me, I could not find it.
Right. So I did some research after the fact for the same thing. So I really think that we should just use adopt others. I mean, I don't think we have to get as stringent as Menor when I looked into theirs. They don't care if it's an above ground. I mean, basically anything bigger than a paddling pool, the entire yard has to be fenced. So, you know, I don't know that, you know, with an above ground pool, I think it's, you know, common sense. Don't have the ladder there, make sure the gate's locked, those kinds of things. I just think that, you know, we ought to draw something up and present it to council because I know that that's not on there and I know that that's important.
Yeah, I can look up, I mean, maybe look up what some other municipalities do.
Right.
We know in Painesville Township, we have a decent swimming pool rules, for lack of a better term. But I can look around and see what others do and put some ideas together.
That'd be great. And then, so let's see, going down through this line. I mean, if everybody is looking at this, you know, the new patio, you know, a $10 fee for pouring concrete on a new patio. What defines a new patio? Is that a concrete patio? Is that a stone patio that you're spraying with glue? Is it, you know, there's so many things out there now that constitute a new patio. What determines the $10 permit fee? So those were some of my questions. Additions to a new family dwelling or includes an attached garage. So I get this, but this also comes down to a building permit. So the question is, do we charge for this? Again, is it about the revenue? Or is it about our residents and, you know, not whammying them for something they still have to contact the county with and pay for those permits too?
I've got a question. I did get the thing that John sent. So where it says the first column B, Timberlake proposed, that's what we're talking about.
That's what the mayor sent across was the proposed.
And then C, Timberlake is what we're paying now, or is
correct. That is correct. The one that's the first one in line.
Okay, so what's the difference if you call your patio a porch? Then you don't have to get a permit?
So there's my point. So, you know, so when I started looking at some of the villages that were closer to our size, you know, and what they charge for is that they did not charge for permits if it was something they had to get through the county, and they kept it simple for the fact of what were they certified to inspect? So, you know, when you're asking our zoning inspector to go out onto a piece of property, yeah, I agree. He can take a look at a driveway and get a permit for that. And is it 5 feet from our property lines, that type of thing for our village ordinances. But what is he certified in? I mean, is he certified to be looking at a new roof that goes on? Those kinds of things, you know, so that's, I mean, I paid for the permit. I still had to have another company come out and fix my roof because the company I got didn't do it right. So, you know, that inspection didn't really mean much on that level. So I'm not opposed to the permits. I'm just putting it to council that I think that you can't just look at the revenue side of it. We have to consider what's in the best interest for the residents.
A lot of these things, protecting the resident is making sure these contractors get licensed and they present their bond and insurance and so forth, so that in case there's an event or something that does happen, the residents can go back and have a little fallback on the contractor.
And I understand that. And if they're registered
that's-
with the county, absolutely.
If they are, but most of them aren't, you know, not all
And
of
if
them
they're
are.
not, then they apply for the contract within the village, and I think we should charge the $125. I have no problem with that, but I don't think we should charge a contractor that has to register with the village and is also registered with the county. That's the concern.
Okay.
So, you know, it's also the demolition of something. Who deems if we're tearing down a garage or a dwelling? They get a permit for that with the village, but is that something also through the county? Is this something that most of the others don't, you know, they charge for it, but again, they have their engineers come out that make those determinations. Like, is this safe and what's around it? And is there any asbestos? And, you know, we could just give a permit and tell them tear anything they want down, but what goes along with that? So, you know, the permit fees, there's just a little bit more to it. And that's why, to me, you're safer if we have our residents put forth and go through the county other than for these major things. And again, I'm putting it to council's vote. But I think that there's questions on the fees that, and again, it's not so much about the fees as it is what we are charging for and what they've been charging for years. Does this make sense?
Okay.
Well, you're just making sure that the people who are inspecting are certified to follow it through.
And that's just it. You know, I think that, again, there's some of them that do make sense, you know, when it comes down to, but, you know, when I put new windows in my home, the contractor was registered with the county. So, but I paid for the permit in the village, but nobody came out and inspected my windows. It just drove by and said, yeah, you got new windows. Yet it was the worst company I ever dealt with in my life. So that's on me. But who, again, we pay for a permit for this. Why?
Well, but almost everywhere you go in every other city, I've gotten permits. Most cases, unless it's needed, required some type of inspection, they don't come in and inspect. I mean,
well, I can tell you that by contacting and looking at all of the ones that are in that spreadsheet, we're the ones that are like going through the majority and charging these people for these items. Timberlake alone, not the other cities. So, you know, I don't know if we want to go through the line on every single one of these, how you want to do this, and how council wants to move forward. But again, it's furnaces, air conditionings. And if you look at Fairport, Madison, Menor on the Lake, you know, villages that are our size, none of these people are being charged for these things. But again, I put a new furnace in, I'm getting a permit, but there's nobody inspecting this, but I'm getting it inspected by the county. So that's my question. If it's electrical, that type of thing. So I get generating these funds, but again, these are the questions. And from talking to the other zoning inspectors from some of these villages, their reasonings is that they're not actually certified in these items, so they don't charge for them. And they also look at it as though the residents, by fixing up their homes, putting in the new items, that type of thing, they get it on the backside on the tax. When the home sells, they're upgraded, those types of things. So again, I'm just telling you what the other people said. I took the time to make the phone calls and wanted to know why they didn't charge for the items that we charge for. And they even said it came down to the difference of some people doing the work and not doing the work, or they felt like they were double whammy because they were paying the county for those inspections and such, and also Timberlake. So, you know, again, a lot of the other villages and cities started doing away with the little itty bitty nickel and diming. Secondly, was that it was staying on top of it. for the zoning inspector to consistently have to go out. So again, we're asking, someone to inspect my windows, you get a permit, and we do a fence. If you read the ordinances, they're supposed to come back out and inspect. And that's what I'm saying, as we get more into this, you're going to see that, that's where it's kind of where it's at. So again, council's going to have to look this over, determine. I don't think it should be in regards to generating funds for the village as much as it is for our residents, and that they make sense.
But if we're looking at saving money, can't we make money too? I mean, profit's not a dirty word for the village to make some money on these things. I mean, I understand what you're saying with the residents, but either way, I don't care. I mean, I've been doing, for 40 years, I've been getting permits, and, every time I get a permit, I can tell you, I can count very few that come and inspect. Like when I do even work inside the house, replace a hot water tank, they don't come and inspect that after you're done. Usually you just make sure you get a qualified, that's why you want to get a plumber that's licensed and bonded and insured and registered with the village, so we know that we have someone qualified doing the job, and chances are there won't be a fly-by-night, and basically, we'll end up with problems. So, but again, council could do what they want. Personally, I think that, we were good. I mean, we had a lot of permits in here that we shouldn't have been charging for, or even listed in here in the pages. Those should all be out. But as far as all the other ones, except for the electrical and the plumbing, I don't see why the village can't make some money on that. And again, as far as making sure, like inspections, we're not really doing inspections. We're just making sure that they, for a shed or something, they put it on their property. They're 5 feet from the setback and so forth. So
to defend that a little bit, John, I think that some of these were put in place in the past history, and I get the making of the money, but we had a zoning inspector that was paid half of everything, and that has also changed. So again, I don't know that Timberlake is in the business of making money off of its residents. So I, again, address council on this. Yes, it is up to council. Where do you draw the line, and what do you want to draw the line on?
all right, but the problem going to be now, okay, we're going to pay the new zoning inspector a fixed fee. Problem is now if he only does 10 permits for the whole year, it's going to cost the village a lot of money. We're not going to recover that money. Whereas before, if he only did 10 permits, we only gave him half of that, which means we got the other half. So at least we didn't lose money. We didn't make anything that year, but at least we didn't lose. This way, if he doesn't do $3,000 worth of permits, it's going to cost the village money to pay him.
There's no guarantee that in other years that he could have wrote 2 permits and didn't make anything. So, I can't, I'm just throwing it out there.
Making money. He's been doing it. So, I mean.
So here's the other problem. I disagree with that comment about him and the zoning permits. When a resident makes an improvement to their house, like adds a porch or a patio, they go to the county to get the county permit, and that goes on their property taxes. So each year we get the additional revenue from the property taxes for the increase in their value of whatever improvement they've done to their home.
Right.
True.
Which is more than a permit. So my question again is to council, and I'd like to hear from everyone that's muted. How do we address this, and where do you want to go with it?
I agree with you, Kim. I think we need to look at some of these, because looking at this list and looking at what we already have in there, yeah, there's quite a difference in the amount. There's a lot of ambiguity in there, and yeah, I definitely think it needs to be. I definitely think it needs to be looked at.
So are we going to do this tonight? Jason, do you recommend that we go through each line and come to a determination? Or should we, I think if we put this out to everybody and you go line by line, we're all going to come up with different ideas. So what's your, and again, I started looking at some of the other villages to think, what could we adopt? How could we just adopt what they went with to alleviate? But I don't know. Again, I called and spoke to the zoning inspectors, and they stated too that if they went on absolutely every single person did to their homes, they wouldn't be able to keep up. Granted, we're Timberlake, but I don't know that we make the residents. I don't know. I paid for all my permits.
What did everybody else think?
At least the contractors have. So yeah, I don't know, you know, and I asked, why aren't you doing a roof? Because I'm not certified to inspect a roof and I'm not getting up there to inspect it. So,
All right,
you know,
so,
and again, you know, their comment was if they were registered with the county and they paid a fee there, then, you know, they don't pay a fee to their village. Then it's the homeowner, between the homeowner and that company and the county, because they have a more substantial fee too. So and they register every year. So that's, I get it. Sherry, Dr. Sharma, Shannon?
Well, I have one quick question. I don't have the ordinances in front of me, but does the village charge for like a zoning compliance certificate or anything like that? I know in the township that we're in, and actually I believe the county requires it too. Anytime, you know, as part of the submission to the county to get your permit, you know, you have to show zoning compliance. So that might be another way that some of these other places recoup some of the money rather than charging it for permits. You know, if somebody wants to build a shed on their property, you know, you submit the plans to the village, make sure that that shed is in compliance with any applicable zoning rules and regulations. You know, you sign off on that. You know, if it's not, that's where the Board of Zoning Appeals comes in and you can ask for a variance. So like I know in the township we're in, you know, I'm not 100% sure their permit fees or what they charge, but I know anytime somebody wants to do an improvement on their property, you have to get a zoning certificate is what they call it, saying that, you know, because like for instance, in the township, an accessory building, so like a shed or a garage, can only be so big. It has to be X amount of feet from the main building. Has to
Correct.
be X amount-
We have that in
Yeah.
our zoning. Absolutely. 5 feet
So-
all the way around, and it depends on the height of your structure and all, determining how big your shed could be on your property and the size of the lot. So,
Right. So they would, so if you were, you know, in this township, if you were to want to build a shed, you know, you would have to submit an application for a zoning certificate to the zoning department. You know, they would review everything, make sure all your plans are in compliance with our code. You know, and if it is, boom, here's your zoning certificate. You know, if it's not, it gets denied, and then either you rethink your plans or you ask for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. But to apply for one of those zoning certificates costs, you know, I don't know the dollar amount off the top of my head, but you know, it costs some money because the zoning inspector has to review it and take some time. And I know too, you know, anytime you get a permit from the county, you know, you have to show some kind of compliant, you know, you have to show that what you're doing is compliant with the local zoning resolutions. So I don't know, maybe that's another area to look into to see if, you know, instead of charging piecemeal on the permits, maybe we want to go that route and recoup some of the money that way. Just a thought.
I can tell you Perry
We can
Village,
also-
he charges the $20 for like a deck, you know, to get the certificate, the zoning permit. He charges $20. I can tell you that. So it
What
kind of gives you an
dollars?
idea how they do it. Honor.
That's pretty cheap because last I remember for the jacuzzi, it was $75, $80 that I had paid. And
Well, the
that's what
best-
I was going to recommend. Yeah, that's what I was going to recommend, that based on what other villages do.
so,
Right, we can take a look and see what the other places are doing. I mean,
well, that's on
we're-
that spreadsheet they just sent to you. So yeah, we
Right.
should take a look.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Dr.
if it's
Sharma,
not $10, yeah,
you paid for a permit for a hot tub?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
there's
that was
nothing
like
on the books for that. So you got charged
No,
for
I
a
did.
permit.
I went to the Painesville County office.
Ah,
and I
okay.
never-
Okay, because of the
That's what
electrical and all, because I was gonna say, we don't have anything on Timberlake's books for a hot tub.
yeah,
so-
that's the county,
Okay.
not the Timberlake.
For the county, yeah. That's
Right.
where I went
So
and I paid them. Yeah.
now, when you got that, did they come out and inspect it?
Yeah, they did. That was like, what, 10 years back?
Yeah,
But yes, they did.
Okay.
The thing is, if we're paying the county, I mean, it depends, right? Like, is it $10 to the village? It's probably not a big deal. But if we're charging, $50, $60 for something that, like, the homeowner's already paying the county for, and we're not even checking, it's a drive-by, oh, yeah, you got a new jacuzzi, good for you, then there's no, reason for that.
No, the guy only stopped for 5 minutes, but he did. And even when I went there, he did ask me a few questions, and it was like $75.
Well,
If we're gonna get if we're getting like a licensed professional to check, that's one thing. But if we're, just getting someone, who's not really properly licensed or anything for it, then it really doesn't make sense to do it.
and I still agree that non-registered with the county contractors should check in, and
Right.
I agree that, but again, if they're registered with the county and, now this reflects on a cost to the homeowner. So, when they're paying the county fees and then they're also paying the Timberlake fees, the question is where do the fees become to the point they can't afford to do the project? A few $100s can make and break a project too, especially, in the times and people laid off and whatever. So, I'm just trying to look out for the residents and, make a determination if we could make it a little more simpler. And, our zoning inspector is going to have other details and other jobs coming up along with it. So, I understand. The thing is that I don't know. I think that again, we should consider our residents and the nickel and diming and the fees are.
No, I think we're both in agreement too, Kim, that, if we're paying an amount to the county that's pretty hefty to get somebody licensed to come and take a look, it doesn't make any sense to do it again through the village.
And I think that when we look at this, we do have to get a little more granular, like Vince brought up, the difference between a patio and a porch. His front porch is his front door. I have a back door, so mine's the patio. So, well, the next question is somebody's front yard facing the lake? Is it their backyard because it's the driveway? Those are questions that I think we just need to, and I guess if you have to ask the question and make it fair to all residents, then you don't charge a permit for it. So, I get it. And is it a freestanding deck versus something attached to the house? I'm not saying not to charge for some of the permits. I agree, but they have to make sense and they have to be things that I think our zoning inspector is capable of actually inspecting. Yes. Is the fence put on the property line? We paid for the survey, got new pins, all of it to find out that my fence on the opposite side of my house is actually 3 feet in. And yet the neighbor owns 3 feet of my property. But if I wanted to spend the money for the existing fence, I could have moved it and reclaimed my property, so those types of things. So, I'm just throwing that out there. I look at it like he's mowing that. I don't have to. So, so I'm just saying that I think we just need to make sense of them and, what's in the best interest of the village. And I think some of them become a little, I don't know. They're just like, and again, I think that Gary Gray's done a really good job when it came to our sewers and, people tying into our drains and that type of thing. I do believe that those are important. So, making sure that sheds and driveways are 5 feet from everywhere, from your property lines and that type of thing. You have to consider your neighbors. And so I have no qualms about any of that. I just think that there's some of them that definitely need to be revamped. And again, if we can go on the zoning side of it or go with the county, the next question would be is how do you get people to go to the county to do their permits? That's the only other question.
One thing though, does the county provide permits for driveways, for basement waterproofing, for roofs, for siding, for windows, those type of things? Or does that have to come through the village only and they're only doing the mechanic? Because I'm at their website, they have electrical, mechanical, and plumbing.
It would be under their licensed contractor. So again, most of the villages that I contacted, they don't charge a permit for it as long as they're a registered contractor with the county. None of them actually charged anything for siding, like putting siding on the house or windows. They wanted registered people with the county.
But does the county then provide the permit for that or not?
If you're doing, no, I mean, that's just it. The county's like, unless it's a major construction. You know, if the contractor, like my contractor, I had to pay the fee in Timberlake, but he was also registered with the county. So when we did all the siding work and the new windows, you know, I got licensed contractors that were all certified within Lake County, but then I got whammied with all the fees here too. So, and that's not just me, that's anybody that's doing any work in Timberlake.
Well, I did my share of permits when I did mine too also, so, yep.
Right. So that's why I'm saying is that, you know, when you look at the other villages, and that's why I took the time to call them to find out why they're not charging these fees. And like Jason said, they're starting to go through, you know, the zoning side of it. So to make sure it's compliant, but we don't have a board of zoning appeals, which is something else we need to get set up so that we can go that route. And then if they do get permits, and technically I do believe the county does have a permit for a shed. And again, those things go on the county auditor's site. And again, you get your taxes, and because they tell you when the shed was put in and what additions were put on. So the building side of it, they have those too. And those also go on the auditor's site. And then the property is assessed and taxed on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for all your research there. So where do you want to go from here then? I guess, do we want to get a list put together and then everyone look at it again?
I mean, everybody has it. So I guess, you know, they could put in their thoughts on and compare it to, you know, that's why I tried to look at something that was amicable, that was a comparison to us. So, you know, and Joanne did all the hard work, believe it or not, for East Lake, which is, I mean, I don't even know how you compare us to East Lake, but Perry Village, North Village, Fairport Harbor, Madison, and Menor on the Lake. So, you know, to go through those and look at their list compared to our list, we're nickel and diming our residents. And I get it, but that's why I called those zoning inspectors and asked them why.
Are you saying to just do away with some of them or just reduction? What do we, Kim?
I'm not saying anything. Council's got to make a decision. My thought is that you reduce it down and make common sense out of them. But, you know, again, that's up to council.
You know,
I think we all will have our own opinions on it.
I do agree that, you know, we should reduce down as opposed to like getting rid of the whole thing.
And I agree with that. So, you know, if you look at Perry Village, which is still bigger than us, but, you know, not a big difference. I mean, they've got the first part of the top of the list, you know, they charge $100 for the dwelling. They charge the engineer fees, the new decks, and it goes on down the list. The last one is the demolition. So, you know, looking at that, and then we carry it on through. So I'm not opposed to continuing with the yard drain so that we know that residents, we already have sewer issues. So I'm not opposed to having them, you know, pay for that permit. We know when they're digging and what they're digging up and what they're tying into. I think that we should do away with the contractor fee as long as they're registered with the county, and they still have to send all of that to our zoning inspector. So everything, as long as it's legitimate with the county, or you can go online and look and see if they're registered for the year, then you can do away with that. But you just have to know that all their credentials are in order. And in all fairness, the county is more stringent on it than we are. So I'm not opposed to the excavations part of it, the absolute for the drainage and yards and that type of thing. I have no problem with those, but I think, you know, furnaces and air conditioners, you know, those are still electrical and that type of thing. They have to go through the county. So I think that's another one that should be in question. You know, gutters, sidings, roof, you know, is it just about making money? So I don't know. That's a decision where I think each person on council ought to take a look at this spreadsheet and write their reasons. And if you want to send it, this is going to be a tough one for everyone to agree on.
So write up what we think and send it to you.
I'm not the one making the final decision here. It's everybody.
Why, that's what I'm saying.
I don't have a vote, but I do have an opinion, and I really think that the village does need money, and I think what we should, if we can, you know, make some money on the permits. Now, a lot of these ridiculous ones, we don't want to charge for the $5 for, you know, some of these ridiculous, but other than that.
Well, the ones that are actually in the ordinance book, I agree, those are crazy. Those just need to go away. But I'm talking about just the ones that we are actually charging for consistently now on the spreadsheet.
So,
Okay, I'll go out of the way here and give you some more of my time. Is if each council member wants to look at that sheet, send over their suggestions or, you know, mark it up, and I will do another Excel spreadsheet with each council person's name and what they recommended and email it all out to everybody else.
Sounds like a good idea. I agree.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all the hard work you guys have put into it.
You want to put a time limit on it? When do you want it by, Joanne?
Hold on, let me grab a calendar here. Let's do April 2nd. That gives you guys almost a little over a week. I'll work on it over April 3rd.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I do have a question though. So the thing that John just sent over, if I'm looking at this right, again, column C is what we charge now. And then
Yes.
column B is what is proposed. So if I go down to an addition, number 24, if someone wants to put an addition on their house, we don't charge anything for a permit?
No, it's $100. Addition to a family dwelling includes attached garage. But then see, this is where when you go down to additions, further down, it's nothing. And that's why I said it's counter. That's why I said everybody really needs to look at this because there's things on here that contradict each other too. So
No, the only thing is only Eastlake has additions there in their column. No one else had anything under that additions there. So that's why there's nothing in there. So we didn't have anything before, neither did any of the other villages. The only one that had something for additions was Eastlake. That's it. So that's why I didn't put anything in there, Vince. But what I'm saying is I just try to compare to what we had. And again, you know, this was just a preliminary one so that we can discuss it. So.
Right, I get that. But like I said, I'm, you know, and we can get off the subject here real soon, but I'm looking at number 14. I'm looking at number 24. Number 14 is addition to family dwelling. Right now it's 100, we're proposing 75, and then 24 is addition and it's 0 and 0. What's the difference between an addition to a family dwelling and an addition? I mean, I that's what I don't get. I mean, some of the verbiage on there, what is it?
Joanne, can you explain where you got that at then?
I just put it in as, when I was pulling out like the city Eastlake, it was off of Eastlake's addition.
Right, okay.
So some of the stuff that's blank on our end, if Eastlake had it, I stuck it in there so you can see that I was looking at what Eastlake had on their website too.
Okay, so you're saying Eastlake's number 24 would be comparable to everybody else's 14?
yes.
Probably, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now I'm understanding it, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that, or can we put that to bed for now? Okay.
So April 2nd, get all our suggestions in.
So then,
Right.
Jason, that means that those fees that are in that on page 22, 23, 24, 25, all of that's going to change. Because even then, like we don't, that's the thing. On the spreadsheet, there's nothing for plumbing, but yet in the book, there is. So this is where it bounces back and forth a little bit. So yeah. So these are things we're going to have to make them go away. So, I mean, they want to charge you $1.50 for French drain per linear foot. $1.50. So it's just, there's some crazy stuff in here that I think that these pages, these will be the ones that actually change.
Okay.
And then I found on page 28 under the inspection bond, when it says there's a verbiage in there about cash. So that needs to be addressed when we were reading it. And then the driveway and the apron issue, that's also in concerns. I don't know why we have tunnels, but I guess somebody at one point did try to dig a tunnel down by the lake. So the driveway situation was $75 for a driveway and without an apron, and it was $35 with the apron. So I know that there's been some questions on how people were charged in regards to having an apron or not having an apron by their permit. So I know that that one's going to be one in question. And then of course, page 27, there's electrical information and such on there that it's also not being charged for on the permit side. And I think that was it.
And then we had 1442.18, the septic system permit required.
Right.
Do you have septic systems there anymore?
No.
Septic thing?
So that could be removed. And then page 32, which was
The penalty.
yeah. So I'm not quite sure where to go with that one.
Talking about the 1442.99.
Yes, sir. Because everything prior to that is, I mean, that's the maintenance bond required and all the above for the penalty.
Yeah, I mean, so that would apply to any violation of chapter 1442.
So once we redesign 1442, we would still want to leave that in place.
Yeah, you would still want a penalty provision, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and a lot of times, you know, just something to consider with the penalty. A lot of times when you're talking permits, building, housing codes, things like that, oftentimes you'll see the penalty ratchet up. You know, so a first offense, you know, might be a minor misdemeanor, $100 fine. A second offense within a 12-month period would be, you know, a fourth degree misdemeanor, which would be $250 fine, you know, so on and so forth. Just an idea, you know, don't have to, it can be $100 all day, every day, or it could be less. You know, I know it's a little different, but I know like in the township, a zoning violation is up to a $500 fine. Now, the court will almost never do that. That's a lot to find somebody for the typical zoning stuff you see, but
That's what I'm saying. I think that, you know, again, if somebody moves into the village, didn't get a permit, isn't registered with the county, isn't a licensed contractor and starts digging, that penalty definitely needs to be in place. So that's fine. I just want to make sure. So once we revamp the whole thing, then we're good. Okay. Well, then I think it starts with those zoning fees because again, most of those are going to change.
Okay, and then the last thing here on 1444.07, the fees. You have $125 if not registered with city on the notes. That's page 37.
Correct. Oh, page 30.
But back up to page 36 on that same one, 1444.06. Is council okay with the dollar amount in there or
Where?
the insurance?
Oh, yeah.
I would think
Yeah.
almost any company has way more insurance than that. I mean, that was passed in 1998. I mean,
That's a minimum.
Right. So
300's next to nothing.
that's on page 36. So yeah, we looked at that too, and it was like, yeah, I think I have more on my car insurance than that.
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah,
thinking that
that's low.
we need to revisit that for sure.
Or maybe even tell, add $1 million umbrella in there.
And
Yeah.
and I don't know what our insurance with our companies are right now.
Page 37. Okay, 36, okay. All right, then page 37, we'll get back to those fees then. That's for the contractor's registration. Right now, it's $100.
So
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
if they register, then after June 30th, it goes down to 60. So go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand that because the county, they're not giving you a break for $60. I think that we should make that just straight across the board. If they're not registered with the county, a licensed contractor and can't produce their credentials, we charge them $125.
Well.
And
now
I
we're
don't
gonna
care,
do a
and I
reverse
don't care
roll.
if it's
I
2
think that's
weeks
too
before the
much
end of
now.
the year. What's that?
Now I'm going to do a reverse roll on you. I think that's too much. So,
Well, again, this is somebody putting in our time. I think that, and honestly, I went with what Eastlake did. And they said, if they have to look at the credentials, they have to call the state of Ohio. I mean, this day and age, anybody can Photoshop anything they want. You got to call, you got to take the time to find out. So I look at it this way. If you're getting a fax or you look online from the county, you have the information, but the contractor rolls in and hands you a printed out bunch of whatever he decided to do. And then he, cracks up the side of somebody's house. Well, here we go. So my point is that it needs to be followed up on. And that's why I looked at it. Our zoning inspector would have to take the time to, call the state of Ohio and make sure that they have their insurances and that type of thing to know that. And I would hope that the homeowner would do the same thing, but our zoning inspector is that buffer for someone that didn't go through the county restrictions. So I just went with what Eastlake had and said, I kind of like that idea. And again, it's someone's time that generally, if they're with the county, they didn't have to spend time to do it.
well, if a contractor's doing a small job though, that can kind of hurt the job also. And, he's going to back charge the resident for that $125 then if he's doing a little job for them.
Right.
So that's,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Like I said, I tend to agree with you the way on the permits.
And what are we charging now?
Pardon me?
It's $100 now, right?
$100 now, yeah.
But there's no fee if they're registered with the county and they're a legitimate business. So I don't know so that means you're just going to charge $100 regardless, and they're still registered with the county. So here we go.
Oh, no. what we could do is we could say, you know, if they're not registered, yes, then, because again, we're not doing any plumbing, we're not doing any electrical, we're not doing any mechanical. The county's doing all that, so of course they would have to register with them for sure. But if they're registered with the county, you know, as long as they provide that registration with their certificate of insurance and workers' comp, we can waive that fee. I can see that. But if they're not registered, I can't see them paying more than 100 because again, then the resident, it's just gonna go back on the resident. They're gonna back charge the resident for that $100 if they're only doing one little
I'd
job.
be
in here.
finding a contractor with the county, but that's fine. And again, it's up to
Well, not
council.
all contractors are registered with the county though. That's the thing. I mean, so. I guess it's something, like I said, I got
So
no
take a
vote,
look
so
at
it's
it.
up to
I would say
council.
that
Yeah.
that's on the permits there too. So again, that's part of that fee, you know, but I
Well, we
don't-
put an extra line item on that on the spreadsheet then, and then everyone give their input on that. How's that?
I thought it was, I thought it was already on there.
Is it?
Contractor registration is $50 here. And again, Eastlake did 125. Most villages didn't even charge for it, and Fairport charged 40, and Menor on the Lake was 50.
Okay.
So I just went with what Eastlake did for the fact that, again, they only charge it if they're not registered with the county.
Yeah, it's actually number 78 on the Excel spreadsheet.
It's on there. So that's why I say that. And then that $60 for, you know, half a year or whatever, that just needs to go away. Because from what I could see in any of my research, it looks like they were all charged $100 anyway. Didn't matter when it was. So I don't know how wrong or right that is, but they were charged $100, no matter what time of year it was.
Okay. Is there anything else in this packet that we have to go through then?
$14.86, the swimming pools.
Yep,
What are you doing on that one?
that's, yep.
186.
I made a mess of this.
This thing all messed up.
Page,
Chapter 1486, to page 61.
Yeah, that's just one page. Oh, and there's nothing there. So yeah, we definitely, you know, and again, I think that the reason I say that we need to really think about this as council is that, you know, when I first got on council, I had some complaints in regards to, and I think Nancy Mara also got some of these pictures like a year ago. There was a resident that had a pool sitting on the side of their home. The pool is since gone, but it was sitting literally between the two houses. So I think that that was another one that when we write this, that if it, and I get that some of our lots, they don't have really backyards, but I feel that if they do put an above ground pool on the side of the house, I don't want to tell these folks that they can't have a pool, but I would think at that point, it definitely needs to be fenced. If it's not in behind the house, behind the property, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Kim, let me ask you something. I think, don't most insurance companies, like even for your own personal homeowners insurance, if you have a pool, don't they require you to do that anyway?
Nope.
They don't?
We contacted our insurance company even for our pool, and they stated that, nah, it's up to your city, village. Now, of course, we put a 6-foot fence up all the way around. But
Right.
when I lived in Willoughby Hills and we put our pool in there, they didn't have to have a fence at all.
Wow.
really?
Nope.
I would have never thought
Nothing.
that.
So that's, you know, that's the thing. I mean, and even just for safety purposes, you know, you always lock the gate and that kind of thing. But, and I think that's the thing too, even with the above ground pools, you know, make sure that the ladder isn't accessible. I mean, nobody would want anything to happen to a child in this village. So, you know, I just think that that's, you know, just common sense, you know, not having boxes or something they can climb on up to, you know, the pool, that kind of thing. So, you know, it has to be X amount of feet away But you know, again, I don't think that we should ask residents with above ground pools to fence in their backyards because they got an above ground pool. Absolutely not. I just think that if they have to be as on the side of the house, that might be, you know, now you're seeing it from the street and from all sides. I think that, you know, that's a consideration that you would think that they have to have at least a fence, or a fence 3-sided, you know, front and side, you know, something of that sort. I'm open to those suggestions, but I think the general safety should be, if it's an in-ground pool, at least the 4-foot fence is generally the norm.
So what are you saying if it's behind because you said you keep on saying the side of the house? What are you about in the backyard?
If it's in the backyard, I mean, that's where the safety protocols come in, you know, that if they have a deck on it, then the gate has to remain locked. If, you know, it has to be a 4-foot gate and it has to be locked, like going up to the steps. If it's just a ladder, then the ladder, when you're done swimming at night, legally, you have to remove the ladder and put it up by the house, those types of things. So, you know, there's those restrictions. If you just have steps build up, again, it still has to have a gate and it has to be locked. You know, and again, people say, well, my kids are just, you know, my kids are fine. Well, it's not just your kids, it's other people's kids. And, you know, nobody wants to put a child in jeopardy. So it's just, you know, those safety protocols. And again, I know that, you know, people like to put out their deck chairs and that kind of thing around their pools and stuff. They have to be a certain amount of feet away and those types of things for those safety. And like I said, when I lived down south, I had to have a 4-foot fence all the way around my pool, and it had to be locked. When I had an above ground pool, the gate had to be locked and everything had to be at least 3 to 4 feet away. So, you know, there was no way that a child could climb up on a dock box and fall into the pool. So.
Okay, well, I think we have at least a week or so to take a look at the sheet and
I have a comment.
send in our responses. Do we have any more left here? Because I think we've gone a little bit over our meeting.
This is the packet that I sent out. We still have to go through the street department, and because that's administration and zoning. So we still have to go through the police department side and the street department, correct?
Is there any way we can have another meeting? Because wasn't this from like 7 to 8? Or am I mistaken?
I mean, that's probably what I put on the Zoom invite, but I put them all to be an hour. It's not necessarily, we don't necessarily have to stop at that time.
And can we pause a minute on fencing on swimming pools? I'm looking under Ohio Revised Code.
Oh, we're
right
still
now.
driving through West Virginia. I'm a little worried about losing the connection. That's all.
I mean, I'm just scanning the surface of Ohio Revised Code, and I'm seeing that it's a state law that swimming pools have to be fenced. I'm trying to find the actual code number, because it's chapter 3746, but I'm looking for the actual code where it says it's got to be fenced. And I mean, the village doesn't have anything, and we're saying all these other entities in Lake County don't have anything, so do we fall back on state law?
I think that it needs to be more granular.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking at chapter 3749, but I can't, it's so huge, I can't find the actual sentence.
And most cities don't require, well, a lot of them don't require above ground pools above a certain height to have the whole yard fenced.
On this side of town.
Well, even where I've lived, and I've never not had a swimming pool, so.
I mean, I live in Lorraine, and it is, you have to have a fence there.
And I know Mentor is the same way, fence everything, but you know, that's where it's at. So where do you tell the guy that puts up a $300 swimming pool in his backyard for his children that now he has to spend, you know, $3,000 on a fence?
I'll look into ORC more. because this is so huge and I've never bothered to check it before.
It looks like 3749, it only goes up to 0.09 with the prohibitions. And a lot of it
Right.
looks like it's directed toward like public pools and
Right, that's what I'm looking
I
at
mean,
too.
I also remember we had a house on East Shore that was vacant for quite a while and it had a built-in pool. And at that time, we had to, as police officers, we had the house on a house check, but we had to make sure that that gate was always locked
Right,
because it was an in-ground pool.
Yeah, I know, for instance, I hate to keep bringing up the township, but for their pool stuff, you have to have a fence unless it's at least 4 feet above the ground level and you
Right.
have a retractable ladder.
Okay.
You know, so it's essentially the same idea. Essentially, you're trying to keep children from wandering in there and God forbid
Right.
falling in that pool.
yep. So yeah, if you guys, Jason, can come up with something there, I think all of council will be extremely grateful for that.
Yeah, I can come up with something. At least a starter, and then council can tweak it as it sees fit. But I can get something going.
Awesome. So I know that part of this meeting was to try to get through Chief's, some of her stuff. So do we have anything there or where we're at? Or did I miss that in the beginning?
What stuff are we talking about?
The,
I thought we went over 24017.
so out of the same book, that packet of information, and then there was the street department for the mayor also?
Yeah, we looked at that one, and actually that does follow the Ohio Revised Code. We checked through it all, and pretty much it's boilerplate. So we didn't really see anything that we should really change in there. And like I said, that's something I believe that will get changed by American Legals when they go through it. And again, because that again is referencing all the Ohio Revised Code.
Okay. And then yours is then completed too, Sue?
I'm not sure what.
This
code-
one, this one. This book
Oh,
we
yeah,
went through.
we went through that.
I'm sorry?
I went through all of that.
Okay.
I didn't see anything that needed to be removed or revised. I
Okay.
mean, a lot of it does reference ORC.
Yeah, we just don't, if we're gonna go and put all this stuff online, we're just trying to get rid of anything that's antiquated, so that's good.
Okay. And then next we have that draft for the residency required for guests. This is regarding parcel A. This is something, Jeremy, that you put together for us that's new. Ordinance 2021, we don't have a number at the end here, but it's amending section 1062.02.
Does it have my guest?
Yeah, let's see here.
I have a question about it though, Mayor. Is there a reason that we're restricting guests to have no more than 5 people with them if they want to go down to the beach?
Yeah, Vince, there is. Because
Right.
I got multiple complaints last summer of specific residents that would have 20, 30 people down there. And again, there was very little beach to begin with, but the partying and everything that was going on, our residents really didn't want to spend any time down there, let alone there was no room or putting up with the drama. So, some people go down and throw parties on the beach on a daily basis. So, it's not like I can go down and watch a sunset and enjoy it. And, I don't know. I don't know if 5 is the magic number. I'm just saying that I think that there's some residents that don't consider other people whatsoever. So, and it's unfortunate because I truly believe we only have one bad egg that has made this come to light. So
If there's one bad egg, then I don't think we should punish the rest of the residents because.
right.
So
So-
I you know.
And,
I
and
think
honestly,
we're
I've
totally
never
doing it
seen
the other way.
anybody else down there with that kind of a group of people. Am I correct on anybody else that spent time down there?
Well,
So,
because sometimes they invited people coming by boating and jet skiing, invited them up. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And that's what happened a couple
Right,
times.
so but I got a question. Let's say I rent the hall, and if I rent the hall, I have access to the beach, and let's say 7 or 8 people from my party want to go down there with me.
you have to go with them.
Why? Yeah, but there's more than 5.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, I think I'm with Vince too, along like, I think the people that were wanting some of that to happen was to put the restrictions on the partying. So the question
get
is,
that.
and again, you're right, the majority of the residents shouldn't be paying the price. So I don't know how you remedy it.
Now, this is a hard question. How about Sherry or Sharma's? Do you have
Yeah,
anything?
I believe the rental of the hall does not include beach access because
Thank you. I
it's
think
just
you're
not
correct.
part of it. It's the pavilion and the hall rental.
But if Vince is a resident, you
Right.
know, he can take people down there.
Correct.
So,
But he has to remain with the remainder of the party in the hall.
sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when I drafted that guest provision, that was all on my own, putting that in there. So council's free to allow no guests, 100 guests, anywhere in between. I just put it in there because it seemed like a good idea at the time. But as far as the number goes, or guests at all, it's totally up to
I know that the party down there last year was at least 30 people and there was no beach to be had. So I don't know where you go with that. And I got complaints from other residents that said they couldn't even go down there and enjoy their evening watching the sunset. So I'm just throwing that out there too. And again, I get the number, but what do you do with that?
And again, I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate with the number, just because. And here again, if you put a number on it, we also know there's going to be some residents are going to be sticklers to that. And if they do see somebody,
right,
nicest person in the world, they see someone go down there with 6 people, they're going to call and say, well, according to 1062.02, you're illegal. You got to get one.
Right. And we don't want to do that. So how do we remedy the person that wants to have 30 people on the beach?
I don't know.
Well, I don't think then they can. We'll have to put a number down and stick with it. And that's what we'll need to enforce as well.
So what's a magic number?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think.
And how do you do it if you have a mom and dad and 4 children?
Right.
You know? And you must be probably guests that are not residents in Timberlake or something.
I think a person that's gonna have 30 guests down there is gonna get in a little bit of trouble with something else that we can probably, send the police down there to take care of, maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying,
I have done that.
I would hate to, like I said, I agree with Vince. I would hate to penalize the rest of the villagers just because we have a few people that want to get rowdy and party down there and pretend it's all theirs, so.
And that's
Then
the thing,
maybe
though,
let's do plan. Yeah.
but the residents were already, even last summer, penalized. So
Yeah. But anyway, then, I'm thinking here in section,
Decide how many people are allowed. We have to come up with something.
well, in the
Well,
meantime,
How about
just-
to start with less than 10?
That's good.
Start with what?
10.
how about 8?
10. Okay, even better.
I'm good with a compromise. It's more than 5, less than 10. It's like a place setting, right?
We do have some larger families. I was thinking about that too, but
Yeah, it's a very, and the sad part is it is truly one and we shouldn't have to pay for that price. None
Well,
of-
I mean, to kind of piggyback off what Mayor said. I mean, if it's really only one, and the problem is partying down there. I mean, certainly, I mean, if you're down there partying, you're probably violating open container laws. You know, I don't know if the village has a noise ordinance on the books, but
We do.
you know, you're probably violating that. You know, you could probably even argue if it's that rowdy, it's disorderly conduct.
Fires have been left unattended.
So
There's-
I think if that's the main concern, there may be other avenues available to deal with that.
Yeah, I would, I like that idea.
I'm okay with that. I like not having to restrict, you know, because I do know that even when my father was still alive and my brother, when he came in to town, you know, there was probably about 9 or 10 of us. And, you know, we went down to the beach for an hour, the kids played in the sand for a little bit, and then we came back to the house. But, you know, those restrictions again, and we're a bunch of, you know, women with little kids. So it's not like it was that kind of a party. So, you know, maybe that's it, is enforcing the ordinances that we have on the books, or strengthening the ordinances that we have for the beach. Versus putting a restriction. I don't want to restrict our residents for the little beach that we do have. We want to be able to enjoy it. And, you know, if the one person isn't cooperating, then we can put measures in place to remove their key, or, you know, reduce their beach restrictions, you know, maybe punish them a little bit more than the rest of the village.
Yep, there you go. I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Okay. Sorry, Sue.
I do want to go back to section 1B, where it says section 106202. It says no person shall enter, remain on the park or recreation lands of the village. And again, unless they're owner of the real property. Now, this is a little misunderstanding, because the park could be anywhere. It could be basically the park over there in Wobbin, or, you know, where the baseball diamonds are, or anything. I think this should be specifically say that it should be parcel A. But then again, you know, we have the bocce ball court over here too. Does that mean then a renter, if they're renting and they're on the bocce league, that they're not allowed to be on
No,
parcel
because they're
A?
there with residents.
They're there with residents, so they would be covered there, right?
And it's no different than the renters are welcome at our beach nights or anything else that we do in parcel A with the village club.
And
Well,
the
it's the
renters are
residents.
able to rent the hall as well.
Correct. It's
It's
just
on a
parcel A
different-
that has the deed
Yes.
restriction.
So under this section, should we then clarify to just say that no person shall enter, remain on parcel A then?
Yep,
Unless they're
yeah,
residents?
I was gonna mention something like that, you know, by saying parks, that you could, you know, people could construe that as other areas. It should be specifically parcel A. So I
Or
would
if we-
I do agree with that.
Or do we take that section out altogether, because under B, subcolumn B, it says a lock gate shall be placed. So that's basically the beach. It restricts the access there, and they have to be a lot owner, a lot buyer to access the beach. Do we want to just clarify it for the beach then, or just for
No,
all
it's
of
parcel A. That park is just as private as the beach, believe it or not.
So it's the way that ordinance is written. The ordinance right before it, 106201, defines the different park areas in the village. And so that's why, you know, that subsection A of the beach ordinance says, you know, shall not enter or remain on the park and recreation lands of the village as set forth in 106201A. And 106201A is describing parcel A, is describing the property that Village Hall is on and the beach is on. Then if you go to subsection D, now that's talking about the other park and recreation lands in the village. And because those aren't subject to the deed restrictions, you know, that's why that one's allowed. Anybody who's a resident of the village is allowed there.
Okay.
So yeah, if you look at 106201, it provides two separate definitions of, you know, the various parks and recreation lands in the village. And that's why there's the differentiation in the beach ordinance.
But that whole park, bocce ball, all of it is just as private.
Correct, because that's all part of, parcel A. That's also why,
Pavilion.
that's also why subsection C, says the restrictions contained in paragraph A do not apply to Village Hall. Even though somebody might not be a homeowner, we can't keep them out of Village Hall.
Correct.
So that's why that is carved out of there.
Even though part of the hall is built on parcel A, but the pavilion is not.
Yeah, but like I said, it also, so 1062, the beach ordinance in front of you kind of works in conjunction with 1062-01, which just provides kind of general definitions of the various parks and recreation lands.
Okay, I understand it now.
Jason, I was pulling up the ordinances. I might have missed what you said, but in the definitions in A, it does specifically give the two different areas, but it doesn't refer the adjacent 1.193 plus or minus acre park site. Could we just put in that subsection A referred to as parcel A, and then we could just say parcel A and everything else?
Run that by me again, I'm sorry.
So in the definitions, 1062-01, the land's defined. It's showing as subsection A, the lakefront property on the northwestern side, known as 11 East Shore, on a 0.591 acre site plus an adjacent 1.193 acre park site. Can we just say, I would guess parcel A would be the 0.591. Can we just, right after where it says on a 0.591 plus or minus acre site, comma, referred to as parcel A, and then we can just refer to it right here in the ordinance? Would we be able to do something like that?
Yeah, we could.
Actually, though, the 1.193 plus or minus acre park site, that's parcel A. Because the Village Hall is on 0.591 acre site.
Okay.
Yeah, just reversed. Yeah, parcel A is actually bigger. Parcel A is a double lot,
Right.
Okay.
believe it or not. So
I had
yeah,
a 50-50 shot.
it's okay. So yeah, I agree though. We should define it as parcel A because that's what everyone knows it as parcel A now. So we just have to add it in this under section B, A, where it says no person shall remain in the park or recreation land, just say no person shall remain on parcel A as set forth, or we just leave it like this and then change 1062, amend 1062-01 to make sure we add parcel A into that for the 1.193 acre.
Yeah, I'll probably just have to update both, because my concern is if we just change the beach ordinance to say parcel A, even though I'm certain at this point, everybody in the village knows what we mean when we say parcel A. That doesn't mean somebody, if we have to end up in court, says, well, how the heck am I supposed to know what parcel A is? So
Okay.
I think if we go back and add in the 1061-01, that 0.1 whatever acre parkland it was, we can put in there, also known as parcel A. And then we can update the beach ordinance to just refer back to that, or just put parcel A as described in 1062-01A or whatever it is, but
Okay.
I can draft them up.
Okay. Anything else on this ordinance that anyone else has any other comments or questions or changes?
So I didn't get exactly where we left off on the guests. Do we want to allow?
I think we're going to just keep it to where residents can take their guests, and we are going to enforce some other restrictions on the parties that don't seem to know how to behave.
Right,
Okay.
Chief?
Okay, Chief's in agreement also, we're good. Okay, Let's move on to the parking. 47006 and 47007. We have two parking ordinances here that basically they don't contradict each other, but they're a little unclear because one of them says that you cannot park. One says you can park with two wheels on, two wheels off, and so forth, which is very very clear that. But the thing is that's unclear is that under 47007, it says that within the front yard setback of any residential home, except upon a driveway improved by dust-free gravel, asphalt, concrete, or other hard surface. So basically, no one can park in front of their property, either, we might as well call it the tree lawn, which is off the edge of the road, two wheels on, two wheels off, as long as they're in the front setback of their property. So I just wanted to have Jason and Jeremy to clarify this a little bit to make it a little more clear so that people don't get misunderstanding, because a lot of residents that feel that they can park their vehicles in their front yard on the tree lawn, which again, according to 47007, they're not allowed to do. So.
Now, is that something we can enforce with our zoning inspector if this is on that books that way?
Yeah, it could be enforced now, actually. I mean,
is that something that the zoning is going to enforce, or will that be like a parking violation on the police department?
It's police. It's
Okay.
400 section is going to be police.
Okay, thank you.
Can we state like the two wheels on, two wheels off, only if they have like a hall rental during a party? You know,
Good point. Yes, I was gonna bring that up. I mean, we should put in there maybe where two wheels on, two wheels off in designated areas only, set forth by the village, maybe something to that effect. So that, again, when we do have rentals here, we do have a sheet that shows where the parking is on that. And again, they have to be two wheels on, two wheels off to allow emergency vehicles to pass through there. So I think we should clarify 47006 a little better. Yes.
Who was that?
Can you repeat that? We didn't hear you.
I think it was background on somebody's.
Oh,
What about this one? There.
So two wheels on, two wheels off is only allowed on the boulevard up by Village Hall. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Anything in, adjacent to where
Yeah.
people coming to an event at the hall,
Right,
not all the way down to the playground.
right. So, if I have a party, they can't park in the street, two wheels on, two wheels off. They pull my driveway. Or park uptown in the parking, something of that sort. It's not throughout the village. It's only up by Village Hall.
Right, that is correct.
Okay, I want to make sure because, yep, perfect.
So wait, what are we trying to, I guess both of them are pretty much opposite. So are we saying that we are okay with people parking in front of their house, two wheels on, two wheels off? Are we saying we're not letting anybody in the village do it except you're renting a hall at Village Hall?
Right.
the latter,
The
yeah.
hall.
Ladder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because 47007 prohibits them from parking in front of their property.
that's the way I thought it was.
6 just says that if you do park on, you have to have two wheels on, two wheels off, but it doesn't say where. And we should
So-
clarify that and say that that's really
Not even
To the
just,
village hall.
for the village hall, yes.
So we're saying that there's no parking on the street throughout any of the residential part of the village. That's it. Just.
There
for the
never has
hall
been,
If you have an
correct.
event, correct. Never has been.
In that way.
But because of 47006, people get the wrong impression that they are
Right.
allowed to because
I
of the
can
way
park here.
47006 is. So that's why we need to just clarify 47006 and then we'll be good.
And yes, that has always been a confusion.
Very.
So yeah, you can never park two wheels on, two wheels off unless you're renting the hall.
And people think that's acceptable in their own front yard.
Yeah, no. But then you got people that have tried to gouge out their front yards and make a parking spot.
Correct.
And that's still the city right of way. So no.
Correct. So, okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, so we want to change 47006 to provide that you can do the 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off only if you're renting Village Hall or attending an event at Village Hall. I mean, how do we word it? You know, I guess let me worry about how to word it. What exactly do you guys want it to do?
In the adjacent, the median, to prohibit people, I mean, we've never had a huge event at the hall that I know of that cars would park halfway down to the playground.
They try.
But the way this is written, if people misconstrue it as their own front yard
Right.
or the median on East Shore being in their front yard. I mean, there's people that have family gatherings and they live on East Shore. So all of a sudden there's a whole row of vehicles parked along the median. I mean, is that okay with everybody?
I mean, the way 47006 is written, that
It's
that
allowed.
would be permissible, yes.
That's what I thought.
I don't know if we want to open up this can of worms. There's gonna be a lot of residents mad if you tell them they can't park anywhere. You know,
Right.
because if you do that, what are you gonna do when their landscaper comes by to cut the grass? Or what are you gonna do when Amazon comes by?
Exactly.
Technically, you gotta write them a ticket. I mean, I think we're opening up a whole can of worms there. I don't
Well, I
think.
think some of the problem, Vince, is that there are people that park out there even late at night consistently, and there's no cars in their driveways whatsoever. These aren't people that are having parties. These are people that are parking there just because they don't want to shuffle cars in their driveway. So that's again, it's not because they're, am I correct, Mayor, that this is coming down to where people are just parking in their front yard or gouging out a portion of their front yard in the city right of way and creating parking spaces. So, you know, that's not allowed either. And I definitely have driven by and seen the same cars sitting out in the front yard, 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off, or completely off the road, but yet still in their front yard, and they got a 40-foot driveway and not a single car in it.
I mean, 47007 is very specific where it says cannot park within the front setback of the residential home. So pretty much, you know, as far as landscapers, they should be parking in the driveway, or they shouldn't be bringing a trailer that's wider than the road allowed to be parked on the road. I mean,
And
there's no
that's where,
parking on East Shore at all because it's not wide enough to allow traffic to go through. And so they should be pulling in the driveways. And then the same thing on all the other streets. If they're too narrow, basically they should be parking somewhere else.
well, then that's where Elizabeth used to have them come in and she would tell them, drop your equipment and go park your stuff at the playground.
Correct.
Because that's the other situation when they are parked like that, you can't get around them, or we've had heavy rains. Now you're just tearing up ruts and everything else, or they do, and then they don't even come back and fix them. So.
Right. And the
That
bigger
would
thing is
become-
emergency vehicle. We get a fire truck. If we have a fire, we need a fire truck to come down the road. We're done. I mean, it's over.
Right.
Especially if it's raining, now they're going to get stuck in the mud. You know, it just, you know, I mean,
I
there's
agree.
just no parking. I mean, so, I mean, really 47007, we're not changing anything there. All we're doing is just clarifying 47006 to make sure that people understand that allowing 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off doesn't mean it's allowed in their front yard. That's all. That's really all we want to really clarify on that. I don't want to change anything else because again, we don't have any, our roads are too narrow to park anywhere, so.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, is the accessibility of emergency vehicles.
I get it, but like I said, I don't know. I can't agree with that. But again, we can all agree to disagree. I think we should be allowing people to park if they have, you know, 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off. I mean, some people.
I mean, if a person's having a big party and they need some parking and, you know, it's a dry day, there's no mud or anything, and they want to park along, you know, we can allow it for temporarily. Yeah, I can see that. But what I'm saying is, for the most part, we have people that, you know, residents that are parking their vehicles every day in front of their property, 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off, or they're cutting out a slot and putting their cars in the front of the property and the driveways are open and empty, you know. I mean, any other city you go to, people are not allowed to park on tree lawns,
I
you
know
or
that
sidewalks.
Even
So
in
you can
Euclid,
park-
you could park during the day, but by 6 o'clock at night, you better have your car off the street or you were getting a ticket.
Correct, so. But yeah. Any other questions or comments on that?
I mean, I'm still a little confused as to what I'm supposed to be drafting.
So parking in Timberlake.
We join you, Nick. I'm with you on that too, so.
I mean, because my only concern is if we want to draft it to say, you know, to carve out some kind of exception for Village Hall. I'm a little concerned as to how specific we can draft that with it still being enforceable. You know, because if I guess I'm concerned with the verbiage we would use. You know, because what would be stopping somebody from saying, "Yeah, I'm parked on the other side of the neighborhood, but I'm walking over to Village Hall for, you know, so and so's event that they're throwing over there."
I think that's where the chief
What if
said,
it's
we put in there,
drafted-
clarify adjacent to the village hall.
Right, and if it says on a temporary basis,
There.
Yeah, temporary basis.
that would be the wording.
Basis
Well,
can be
Because if you have a
construed
party in
by
front of your
residents
house or whatever, there's different situations. If it says on a temporary basis or
But in-
adjacent to Village Hall during a rental.
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, isn't all parking temporary? You know, eventually you're gonna move your car again.
Well, I know in the city of Euclid, you had to call the police department to get permission to leave your car overnight.
Yeah, in Cleveland Heights, that was the same.
Eastlake's the same, though you can't, yeah, for overnight, you can't park between, I think it was 2 and 6 in the morning. If you were
Right.
leaving it there, if it was disabled or you had extra people over, whatever you could call. But basically it was prohibited, you could call it in.
And most cities even have a 2 or 4 hour parking. You can't just leave your car sit. So, you know, we just don't want to have to go through and put up no parking signs everywhere. We used to have them, believe it or not. And they were all taken down. They said it was too much clutter.
What
So,
about just taking out the sentence that says the vehicle shall be parked with majority of the vehicle off the paved highway / street as much as practical in the off-road space available? Why does that sentence need to be in there?
It doesn't.
If you
mean, but-
remove the sentence,
That still would
there's no-
allow you to, because the sentence before that allows, you know, you can't park on a highway or street unless 2 wheels of said vehicle remain on the street and 2 are off the paved street or highway. So if you got that, if you took out the sentence you mentioned, I mean, as long as 2 of my wheels were barely touching the grass and the rest was hanging over into the street, I'd be in
Which-
compliance with that ordinance.
which has happened too. Like some people won't pull off
The
into
way
the
it's-
grass.
The way it's written now, you're supposed to get as much of your car off the road as possible, you know, without pulling the whole thing into the grass.
Correct. And that needs to be done because at the last event, there were a few cars that parked barely off the road and they were still sticking out where you couldn't get an emergency vehicle around it on the roadway. So we had to get them to move it off and pull it off a little more. So yes, that needs to stay in there. But maybe this should be only for parking for the village hall then. This 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off would make it just for that.
Unless scheduled permission from the PD where the
Right.
chief is aware.
Yeah.
I mean, would there be any, and this is just throwing something out there. I mean, if somebody was having an event at Village Hall, you know, and they had people come in and, you know, it wouldn't take too many people before there wouldn't be parking for them anymore. I mean, could we issue them some kind of
Pass.
pass to stick under their windshield or put on their dashboard so that way we know they're at this event. So now
Sure.
they're okay to park like this because we know it's just temporary because when the event's over, they're going to be leaving or going home. It's just if we just word it, you know, the only time you're allowed to do this 2 on 2 off is if you're attending something at Village Hall. I don't know if that solves our problem because
We can put it between on East Shore to Mini Wawa to Lakeshore Boulevard.
but
okay, if we could limit it to a specific section
be
of
all
the
over the
village, you know, I could get
people are
behind
parking
that.
all everywhere, Jason. Down on the other end of town, on the end of Shawandasi, there's a lot of cars parked along that curve. And it's not any set day or night or
Right.
early in the morning.
So we just say no more 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off, unless it's between Mini Wawa for parking events for the hall from Mini Wawa to Lakeshore.
Sure.
Lakeshore.
That sounds good. I like
And
that.
you, yeah, because they, and again, make it on one side of the road. You don't have to make it,
That'll
because
be
you
on the
don't park
median.
going the other
It'll be
direction.
the median only then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, median only between Mini Wawa and Lakeshore sounds good. And then, like I said, it'll designate that for that. And then
I'd still
nowhere
like
else.
to
can
try to
you
get
put
that
this-
lot out front.
Really in the village, yeah, we could do that.
Well, the other issue, if we do the median, 47007B prohibits parking on any grass center strips or median strips.
Well, we
course it
violated that every time we have an event.
Yep.
So
That would
Start
have
writing
to say-
tickets.
we'll have to amend that one then.
That would
Yeah,
have to say
Mayor for a
except
party,
designated
great,
area.
great. My whole family will start getting tickets on the,
So I'm
Well, I
thinking,
think there has to be an exception if somebody's gonna have a couple people over, you know,
A
and they
party.
notify, you know.
we're gonna park in your driveway and mine, Sherry. I think we got the biggest driveways in Timberlake.
Right.
Well, the reason I mentioned the other end of Shawandasi along the curve is that residence has a double wide concrete driveway and they have a basketball goal. So in the afternoons, there's many cars parked along that street so that they can play basketball on the pavement. The only problem I had is the little, I don't even know if it has a name, turning to go from Shawandasi to Waban, that little bitty curved road. They're using that as their parking lot.
There's no
And
parking on triangles.
I disallowed that.
So
it's,
why couldn't they just park at the playground and walk back over?
that's my question. I mean, if you're gonna have 10 cars out there for people playing basketball.
Go
you
park at the
cannot-
playground.
You cannot take all this road space.
So they used to park all the way to Dollar General's parking lot. What happened to that?
The big triangle, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've had an event where they had that many cars that they had to utilize that area up there.
Right, but they have done that in the past.
I mean, we have had events where they've actually walked from there and used that as a parking area. I think the clarification, it's very contradictory between 47006 and 47007. Because we're focusing on events at the village hall, but all of this 2 wheels on and 2 wheels off is happening all over the village at night.
And with parties.
And with parties and with playing basketball and for whatever reason.
Hey, I
Actually,
almost hit
yes.
one of those cars last summer in the golf cart because it was so dark out. The car was black and it was mostly in the road. So, and I was in the golf cart, for crying out loud. So yeah, they're, you know, it's
I mean, the
definitely an
streets
issue.
are narrow. We have parking issues, constant parking issues. I don't know that rewriting 06 would help anything.
So,
what if
What
we
if
just
we-
got rid of it?
right, if you get rid of it and just make it an exception when families are having a get together that, you know, the chief can approve
Right.
parking for a party at their residence.
They let the chief know in ahead of time.
If you get rid of this altogether, then there's nothing against parking on the streets at any time.
Yeah, 07.
Yeah,
Okay,
But I like Kim's idea. We take 47006 and we just designate from Mini Wawa to Lakeshore
That's it.
on East Shore as medium. That's it. Only there, 2 wheels on, 2 wheels off, nowhere else in the village.
that works
But-
for me.
they have a party, they let the chief know. We don't want to be that
Right.
stringent.
And again, we'll make exceptions. If someone wants to park in their front yard, if they have a party, they'll let the chief know. Chief can give them, allow that. Absolutely. As long as the police department is aware of it, then they know. And then as long as they make sure that they're parked off the road enough to where they can allow emergency vehicles through there.
Just like you did at the hall when you had to move cars so that they could get through. Exactly the same thing.
We'll just police it. Okay.
So they give her heads up when they're gonna have a party within a day's time? Do we have to get
Well,
that
I mean,
specific or?
Not everybody has a scheduled event where you can call the chief and say, at 3 o'clock today, I'm gonna have 10 cars here. I mean, basketball, people shooting basketball is, it could be a thrown together thing at the last minute.
Well, tell them to park at the playground.
The only thing I've asked, and I stopped at that residence because they were all along the curve, I don't even know what the little short roads are. Do they really have a name, the triangle roads?
Yeah.
And because the only problem I had with that the other day was they were double parked. They were 2 cars side by side taking up that whole roadway. And I said, this is not your private parking lot. This is a street in the village. So those vehicles, I made them move. But along the front of that house, they did have 2 wheels off and 2 wheels on. But it was for
Park at the playground.
like basketball.
They can park at the playground, they can park at Village Hall.
Exactly. When they literally parked on a roadway, 2 cars side by side, 4 cars deep. Yeah, I made them move.
And I would just tell them there's ample parking at the playground for sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so just to button that up, so I'm clear what I'm doing here.
Yes.
Here we go again.
So in summation, amending 47006 to provide that no 2 on 2 off unless you're attending an event at Village Hall and only between Mini Wawa and Lakeshore.
Yes.
Yes.
And then do we want to craft in a provision as well in all other cases, it needs to be approved by the chief of police? Or do we want to not do that?
I don't do that because you don't
Don't do
know.
that.
Right. I mean,
you
we're
might
out
want to
of
put
control.
in there,
If we have
at
a
no
problem with
time
somebody-
can you block the flow of, emergency vehicles. Whether they're UPS, Amazon, a landscaper, it should probably be in there, at no time can you block the flow of emergency vehicles.
Correct.
And I
agree with that.
Say it again.
just think that there should be restrictions on an hour too.
Hey, Jason, not to throw a buffer into this, but looking at 451168 of the Ohio Revised Code, I know Timberlake has not adopted that according to the ordinances. I don't know if we'll be able to do mini Wawa because you're not allowed to park on a curve. You can't be within 30 feet of a traffic control device. Can't be. I do believe there's a couple fire hydrants in that area too. So you're going to do something like that. Probably going to have to get some more painting done. So I mean, figure out however you want to do it. Just make sure the 451168, even though we don't have those ordinances, they still are state statutes for prohibitive parking.
That's right. That's right. There is a curve there right before Mini Wawa that we cannot park on.
Right.
I mean, it can only go so far right here in the straight part of the roadway.
So do you want to
Basically
say
from
1,000
the Village
feet
Hall West.
Yeah.
from the Village Hall
Sorry.
West?
That makes sense.
Yes, that makes
That
sense.
makes
Okay.
sense. From the Village Hall west, all the way to Lake Shore.
Just say the
So
So you're
dumpster.
not going this way along the curve.
Instead of Mini Wawa, we'll go from the property of Lake Shore or Village Hall property. Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Well,
the
that-
best I can tell you is I will draft something. I will try to make it say
Okay.
what we want it to say, and then obviously we can tweak it if, the
Okay.
words I choose are unclear or it's not what you guys intended or what have you, but I will give it my best shot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on next, the beach key. resolution establishing a fee for the Timberlake beach access key and declaring an emergency. Well,
Once again, these numbers, I seem to recall those were the numbers I heard previously.
yes,
But as far as the fees go, essentially those are just placeholders, you know, whatever council wants to charge for those things.
Excuse me.
But we need to pass something to establish those.
okay. Yeah, that's what we were charging $10 for. Do we want to call it a fee or do you want to call it a deposit? Because if they return the key, they get their $10 back.
That's the way we had set it up, or at least said in the beginning, but we can change that.
Well, and we already have accepted people's money on the premise
Oh, yeah.
as a deposit.
I took one today.
Okay, then we should keep it a deposit.
Okay.
The problem is the ground has shifted and that gate is not locked.
No, it's generally, I went down, looked at it the other day, John, somebody kicked it in again, so
Okay.
we
well,
definitely need to put a repair on it.
Yeah, I'll fix it again tomorrow.
We have that new bar for it too, if you need some help. I can send Gary.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will. I'll get with them. Okay, so we're okay then with that. We'll call it a $10 deposit, and I guess this just this is to follow paperwork, right? Correct?
Yeah, we just need to pass something to officially establish that
Okay.
fee. And then I believe the replacement in there, I put 100. Is that what we want to go with, or is that extreme? Like I said, I just,
Yes. Kim, you want to stay with that then?
I don't know. I get it. It gives legitimacy to it. It made it so that people couldn't just go out and toss it aside. I think it's up on all the council and how they feel about it.
We did have one person that lost their key last year, and they did pay the $100 to get a replacement. And they did it without hesitation, so,
But I didn't like that idea. I didn't think that anyone would have to pay $100 for my safety deposit. I lost the key and I had to pay $19.99. It just didn't sit well with me. So,
I don't like it either, Ritu. It was just a number, but alls it was trying to make people be responsible for the key. I agree.
I don't think it was just a number because somebody had to pay. And think how much they have to pay.
Well,
I don't think
again,
it was
what would
gonna be
stop
about-
somebody from always, just saying, I'll just lose another key and another key and another key and I just pay $10 over and over again. And then we've got a boatload of keys floating around.
Because I'm not paying $10, but 25, 30, something reasonable, not 100, because such accidents do happen. We just need to be cognizant about that. That's all.
I think one consideration is, because essentially the police department is going to be using those keys to determine who's allowed access to the beach.
That's
The police
correct.
department's not really going to be able to tell whether they're a resident who's renting or who owns.
You just have to see the key.
So if there's essentially no penalty for getting a replacement key, I mean, my concern would be what's to stop somebody from, here you go, neighbor, you have my key, give me $10, I'll just go get another one.
Right. That was the concern.
Which I suppose that could still happen even, it's like, all right, well, give me $100 and I'll give you my key and I'll go get another one. But
Still paying $100.
I think it would help at least. But just a thought, I don't have a vote in it.
I think it's worked pretty well the way it is.
I think the other part is there has to be like a sense of trust in the community. I understand that, the price is higher than $10 because we're worried that people will give the keys out, and that makes sense, but $100 is kind of a ridiculous amount. I mean, and it's one thing to be like, that's just a number, but it's another when we're actually charging the residents $100, like, because our neighbors had to pay it because their kids, it dropped out of their pocket. I mean, such a simple little thing. And I think the mayor and his wife know that too.
Yeah, others have complained about
And
it. who
I
didn't
just
have
think
to
the
pay.
price is quite high. Like, you know, it could be $30. It could be.
And
so that-
And I understand all of that, but again, it gives, when you spend $100 on something, when you spend $10 on something, oh, my bad, I lost it. You have to spend $100 on something, you're more apt to take care of it.
Depends on who. Right, but where's that number coming from? I mean, who's to say I won't take care of
Hey,
something?
I came up with that number, and I actually had several residents that were saying we should make it 300. So I'm letting you know, because they were adamant about wanting their privacy on the beach.
I still think that we're picking all this without having a vote or having anybody on the council or on the village, you know, vote on it. Like, at that point, it's just, I understand, Kim, you made that number, that's great. You know, in a couple of
That
years.
that
when
didn't
you're
come out of a
gone,
hat. I talked to several residents in regards to that number.
And then 169 or whatever people voted to not have a locked gate at all. I mean, you know, like, I know you talked to several residents, that's great. I'm just saying, like, you know, we're seeing both sides. There are so many residents in the village. Several is still just 10% of the community, I'm sure. It's not a vote. It's not been agreed on by the council. This is why, you know, there's been, none of this has been, like, really okayed by anybody else. People are still angry about it. And, you know, $30 is still quite a bit. Like, I barely spent $30 on shoes. I think that's quite a high price. So you think $100 is expensive? Somebody who owns a very nice property on the water thinks $300 is something to think about. But
That didn't come from
You know,
people
other
that
people-
lived on the lake, I can tell you that much.
it doesn't matter. It's just an example. For my mom, $300 might be nothing, but for myself, that's quite a lot of money.
Hey, $100 is a lot to me too, but that's why I make sure I take care of that key.
Then we can't say stuff like it's just a number, because it's not a number.
And I agree, but I wanted to have some legitimacy so that people do, you know, we're all adamant about having our privacy on our beach and having it secure so that I can go down there by myself and I don't have to worry. And I feel that everyone should take responsibility, and it makes them take responsibility. When you have to spend $10, it's easy to give away that responsibility, but when you might have to spend 100, you might take a better responsibility for it. And we're all, as residents, responsible for what goes on in Parcel A in that beach.
I mean, we have, you know, residents who got kids, and, you know, they trust their 12-year-old, 13-year-old to go down to the lake with a key, of course, but if something falls out, if, you know, the tide takes it away, that's not a fault of, I don't know. I just think, I understand where we're coming from by having such a high price. We want to protect it, but, you know, of course, it's a double-edged sword. Then we're making it. And have we looked and seen what some of the other, I think $100 is quite
Yes,
a lot.
we did, Shannon. And I can tell you that there are several beach clubs that if you lose your key, they charge you double the price. So I know that there's some of them on Edgecliff that are extremely expensive. When we were charging just $10 for the key, we're the lowest all the way around. The cheapest beyond that was $40 just for a key. Others were in the several hundreds.
But then we're charging 10 times the price. What about $50? Anybody would think twice about having to spend $50.
But their
on something.
penalties were much higher than ours. And some of them, their beach
We
clubs
don't have a
didn't
beach
have a
club. There is no beach club. I mean, what about doing $50?
But it is. It's Parcel A, and it's a private park and a private beach for the lot owners of this village. And what we're doing by establishing the key situation was keeping the non-residents off the beach and out of parcel A, even though they're still on parcel
I
A.
think we also should have done like a something, you know, first key $10, second key $50, third key pay $150. At that point, everybody would think a million times about that.
So you're okay with charging them $50?
Yeah, I think $50 is quite more reasonable. It's one thing to charge someone $10 for something and then 10 times
wasn't.
their initial rate. $50 is still 5 times the rate.
I disagree. I think that by giving it legitimacy, it's not a point about the reasonable price to replace a key that you didn't have respect for.
What's the limit? It could be 100, it could be 300, it could be $1,000. And you know, in 10 years, there's not even going to be a beach to go down to anymore. So.
But there is today, and I spend a lot of time there too. And so do all the residents that got those keys.
Exactly. And, you know, if they lose the key or if their kid loses the key or if they fall down and it's gone, then I think they deserve better than having to pay $100. Like you said, we all spend time down there, and people who are going to want to spend time down there will, you know, will do it.
Oh, this is a vote up to council, Shannon. I'm sticking with my 100, so I guess we can leave it up to.
That's great. Is there,
Kim, how many
are we
so far?
allowed to give rates? Are we allowed to give other rates or no?
I'm sorry?
Are we just voting yes or no? Or I'm saying, are we just voting yes or no?
I
To
can't.
$100?
No,
Or-
this is the everybody's opportunity to give their opinion so we can write the ordinance. You guys are here to debate the point
Okay,
and
perfect.
vote on what you want to do.
If 4
All right,
council
great.
members want it at 100, it'll stay at 100. If 4 council members want it at 50, it'll go down to 50.
Or
So
whatever we come, or
whatever the
whatever we come up
majority of
with.
council would like to set it at, that's probably what it should be. But just another note, though, is that when we first started the keys, I had a resident come up to me and said, oh, only $10? I'd pay 50 for that key. So you know that if we set it at 50, they're going to go buy another key now and say it's lost and get extra keys. So just saying,
Kim, how many keys did we sell?
I'd have to look. We're close to a couple hundred at this point. I'm pretty sure.
And then you have to
Yeah,
take into consideration that that $10 is not a fee, it's a deposit.
Right.
So when
They
they
can-
return the key, they get their $10. If we already had one resident pay $100 for a replacement key, that resident will get that $100 back when they return the key.
correct.
And if we change it to 50 now, we
So we
should
got to give them
be
50 back.
responsible to give, right, to reimburse that other monies to that resident.
Wait a second, I'm confused on this penalty. How did all of a sudden this penalty become a refund?
We've always listed it as a deposit. I'm pretty
It's
sure.
not
we've
a,
done
it's
each
not a
before.
fee. It's a
The penalty?
deposit. All of it was
always
just
a
a
deposit.
deposit.
So it's $100 deposit if they lost it and you had to replace it?
Oh, it was a $10 deposit to even get your original key, which
Mhm.
would be
Right.
refundable when it's returned.
So with that $100, I
That
hear
was
is
a
a
replacement
penalty.
if they lost it. If they wanted another beach key, it was $100 deposit after that.
All right, well, we're gonna have to create another fund for all this, so we get this all transfers, because we shouldn't have this money sitting in general fund.
Yeah, I said that before, but
Yeah.
it's been a year ago. I know.
So I'll be doing that for the next meeting, so we know.
Okay, so then, any other comments or questions on it?
So Mayor, the only comment is, are we gonna vote on it tonight or some
No.
other time?
No.
No, we're not. We're just, this is a work session tonight, Doctor, and we're just gonna, like I said, we can make changes and amend it at the next meeting when we vote on it at that time.
Sounds good, Mayor. I would just want it on record that I would disagree to 100 and agree to 50. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anyone else on that? Okay, what's left
Right.
here? What am I missing here? I think that's all I have.
What is this 2021-04?
What does that say?
Remember we repealed chapter 820, but now we have all these new. Is this done already, or?
Oops.
See that?
I'm looking at, it's about license required and money that the police department's gonna take. The police department got totally away from taking any funds, even concerning parking tickets. And you had to submit it in an envelope to Village Hall. This 82003 talks about the police department issuing a license. It doesn't even say what the license is. I'm assuming it's a soliciting license, but the application has to be from the police department. And then the fee is,
Oh, this is, oh, okay, we're talking about the solicitor ordinance. That's a new solicitor ordinance that we're
right,
putting out.
but why
That's right, we have to go over that yet.
why is the police department involved in taking the fee for this when the police department got totally away from taking in any cash?
That's what we're gonna discuss then, yes. So we'll have to take that part out of it then. Jason, where'd you pull this out of? Another?
It doesn't even say what the license is. All it says is license required.
A peddler's license,
It needs to be named.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a comprehensive chapter. I mean, you read the whole thing in its entirety.
You know,
I think that was done very good. I'm in 100% agreement with everything on the solicitor thing, with the exception of, I do agree that the police department should not handle money. They don't even handle parking tickets.
no,
That
we
would,
don't.
that would entail us to have to give them petty cash, which is
Right.
something more work for Joanne to do. So I think we should find an easier way for them to pay. And I think $100 is a little too much for a peddler's thing. I think that should be a little different. And I know you said you just threw that number in there just for the sake of a number, but I think that's a little steep.
At the bottom of the page, it says 150
Oh, okay.
per year.
Well, we can revise that, right, Jason?
I,
Allow the, like I said, take out the cash part.
yeah.
got the
the
police
app-
parking.
The application, the whole thing with fees, the police department does not need to take any money in at all.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. We can change that, but I mean, then it's just gonna have to be somebody else's responsibility. Unless we don't want to charge at all. In which case, I mean, I guess we could do that too.
Was this something that we can have our zoning inspector, like if you get like, almost like getting a permit?
I mean, it could. I mean, I suppose, I mean, it's not a zoning thing, but I
Right.
suppose we could put them in charge of
Usually that comes from the police department, correct?
issuing the license. I mean, the only thing with the one thing with, to get a license, the applicant has to show that, you know, it hasn't been involved in any fraud, any felony violations or misdemeanor violations involving fraud or moral turpitude within the past 5 years.
So are you saying anybody that knocks on the police department door, we gotta do a criminal history check on these people? Is that what you're saying? For them to have a solicitor's license?
In order to get a license, yeah, I mean, does council want felons going door to door in the neighborhood? I mean, probably
Also,
not.
the neighbors don't want anybody going door to door.
Well,
Period.
and that's why another part of this is the do not knock registry.
The no knock
You're
registry.
right to not be bothered by it.
Right, and NOPEC offers the do not knock program too.
Can we
With
make
the
our
door
entire
hangers.
village a do not knock?
What did this whole thing say?
Not-
before?
Not by ordinance, because you have,
Oh,
I mean, it's commercial speech, there's First Amendment issues there, but if an individual resident does not want solicitors there, they have the right to choose that.
Okay.
Is this a proposal? Is this something that's already passed?
No, it has not passed.
Draft.
That's a draft.
The whole purpose of this meeting is to discuss all these drafts so you guys can decide what you want them to be. We just had to draft something to talk off of.
There's actually a, like an application, like do not knock. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw
Okay,
that.
alright.
I mean, so the police department now has to maintain the do not knock registry, and the police department has to maintain the issuing of the license.
So let me clarify. I just pulled up NOPEC and it says NOPEC Do Not Knock program is a free service offered by your local community in NOPEC to stop solicitors from knocking on your door.
So that's, the
So-
police department is gonna be tasked with keeping track of that. And issuing the licenses.
Yeah, as it's written right now, but like I said, this hasn't been passed. I mean, if council
Well, I
wants to
mean,
change
On the
that,
front page of this, it says chapter 820 is repealed.
because it's a draft of an ordinance.
I'd like to look into chapter 820 and then compare it to this, because this is tasking the police department with a new licensing procedure as well as
That is the purpose of the meeting right now, is for you to tell us those kind of things, look it over, go back, review that, come back to us with other ideas so that we can come up with something, because right now we don't have anything.
I got you. All right. I wasn't even aware of this till I just now looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, chapter 820 as it is right now, it is the solicitor ordinance. I mean, but it's bare bones. There's nothing there. I mean, mayor sent me an email a while back, someone wanted a permit. I'm like, we don't have an application. We don't have any standards for it. We don't have any standards of conduct, when they can go door to door, when they can't.
No, I'm just looking at 82003, where it talks even past the part of paying the licensing fee. We're talking about furnishing 2 photographs of himself of appropriate size. So we're gonna have to create files for all of this, for all of these people that want to solicit in this village, and keep track of all of this information. And then it's our responsibility to check out if they're providing false, misleading, or deceptive information.
Well, let's mark it up, mark it up. What else do you think should be, take it out, add to it?
I don't think we ought to have soliciting at all.
Here's what I'm gonna suggest.
I'll tell you what,
too.
if we ban soliciting outright, we're gonna get sued and we're
Yes,
gonna
we
get
will.
crushed.
Yep,
Absolutely crushed. 1983 all day.
100%. Basically, the whole 800 section was passed, they were from ordinances in 1959. All we're doing is updating it to a current
More detail.
model or current version. We can tweak
I'm
things.
just worried about all the detail in here that the police department is gonna be tasked with for all of these files that we're gonna have to keep on who's providing photographs and who's doing background checks and checking for police records and
And that's exactly what your role is here, is to tell us all those things. so we can
Streamline it,
figure out the
streamline it,
best way
let
to
us
do
know.
it.
the best way to do this is have a set day that anybody that wants to apply for one of these licenses has to come see the chief, and the chief will have to take on this responsibility of checking it out, keep maintaining these photographs. I mean, if somebody just on a Sunday afternoon wants to knock on your door and pass out free Bibles, are you saying they need to have a license to do this? Is that what this is?
Here's another suggestion too. So you guys know, like I said, NOPEC's got the do not knock list, the city of Eastlake's in it, and Mentor on the Lake is in it.
I mean, this
No,
is the
there
first
there
time
is
I'm
under
hearing about this.
82003 D. Oh, no, actually, yeah, the way it's written right now, everybody would have to have a license. But if you're an agent for a charitable, religious, or educational organization, you wouldn't have to pay the fee.
But you still need to get a license,
But yeah, you would still need to get a license.
have a background check, and have,
I
Not-
say,
not a
we don't
background
even go
check.
down that road at all. That we, in the Timberlake Times, notify the residents that they can opt into the NOPEC. And that we don't even mess with it. If it's kids going around selling Girl Scout cookies or whatever, you know,
I would
I
like
don't
to
know much. I,
follow.
just so everybody knows, I don't
Go
know
ahead,
much about
mark
it
it up.
other than NOPEC dropping off the flyers. So Mayor, you can look into it. Chief, you can look into it.
Jason, do you know in other municipalities whose responsibility it is to provide the solicitor's license?
The two municipalities that I based this draft off of were Eastlake and Bay Village. And in both of those, it's the police department. So that's why it's written the way it is. You know, I'm not saying that's the way it has to be, but
Perry Village is the police department.
I mean, I don't mind the police department issuing the licensing. It's just, I mean, it's very vague as far as when you need to come to the police department. I just don't want people knocking on the door at the police department and my officers having to be tasked with taking in the photographs and the application and all of this. This is an administrative duty. And this needs to come to me, set a set date, you know, what, 1 day a week is good to come in and get your license, not all day, every day and all night, knock on the police department's door for this. I really don't, as Vince has said, the police department doesn't need to take in any money, period. So I don't know how we're gonna deal with this because we totally got away from taking cash for parking violations.
Does Ohio have a solicitor's license that if they had a state one, that we could use instead of having to do our own for our village?
What about Lake County? Does Lake
Or a
County?
Lake County solicitors?
I'll have to check into that. I do not know.
They're all gonna mirror the state. Any
All right.
municipality, I mean, Lake County most likely uses the Ohio Revised Code because they don't have codified ordinances because they're a county. And any codified ordinances are pretty much gonna mirror almost verbatim what the state does. Jason, correct?
I'm not even aware if there is an Ohio Revised Code provision on door-to-door solicitors.
I'm not either.
I know there's an Ohio Revised Code provision for townships, but that's because townships are purely statutory creatures. So anything they do has to have an ordinance or a statutory provision for it. I'm not sure if the same thing applies to municipalities.
Okay, so, and we're talking about a license. Is this just a form we're gonna create for the license?
It's already created.
should
Is
be in
that
there,
in the back of
in the
here?
back there, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the application and the license are one and the same. There's a little section at the bottom for kind of internal use. And then I believe there's a spot in the upper right for kind of the license number, if you will.
Okay,
See it?
I do.
You know,
Well,
and the
this-
pictures are in there so we can be sure that the person we gave the license to is the person who's going door to door in the village.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, this needs to have a set provision when somebody can obtain a license, instead of knocking on the police department's door at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night and saying, you know, I want to obtain a license. This should not be tasked to whatever officer is on duty.
Well,
This
can we
should be
just
an-
put down during daytime only then?
She'll mark it up.
Yeah.
But daytime only, there's 2 daytimes that there's special officers working on Mondays and Wednesdays. It still needs to be.
I'll tell you what, the best thing, maybe, you know, we'll look at this,
So
and then we can
set
get the
it down
comments.
that you only do it 2 days a week.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like, you know, on.
Or
Thursday,
can it
Friday.
can it be that they have to apply online and email it? And then it will be returned to them within 30 days of the receipt of the application. to give ample time to do the paperwork.
That's an idea.
That's an
It's
idea.
an
Or they could-
idea. If
I
we
would
have to
like
have it,
I
and
would
if
like
there's
time to
not one
review.
already for this county or state that we can follow.
Jason and Jeremy, I'd like time to look this over.
Sure.
I mean,
Uh,
okay,
Yeah,
Jeremy, you,
nobody's voting tonight. We still have to do 3 readings on this after tonight anyway, so.
okay, that's fine.
right, that's that. And also, Jeremy, you had mentioned here in an email that you want over the next 2 weeks, maybe have another work session to button these things up before the next meeting. So we can probably, by then, we'll have a lot of these, questions then to present then, and we can discuss them at that time. So is there anything else we need to do for this meeting? So I'd like to wrap it
Yes.
up. Going on 3
Yes.
hours. Yes,
Yes,
go
we
ahead.
do. We're gonna do one it's gonna be pretty quick and easy.
Okay.
Actually, I'm gonna try to make it quick and easy. This is in reference to the budget. The budget worksheets have been filled out or sent out. So everybody knows, when I set the budget up, we were negative $11,370.35 of our revenue, of what we were expecting to bring in. So we were overspending. We actually should have probably about 17 of unencumbered for unforeseen circumstances. So going forward, in reference to purchases, I'm going to state the one item from the village official handbook. It says no orders or contracts involving the expenditures of money are to be made unless there is a signed certificate of the fiscal officer that amount required for the purchase or the contract has been lawfully appropriated and is in the treasurer or in the process of collections for the credit. So I'm going to send out a request for purchase order. So anytime you want to make a purchase, you send us out, complete this out, and I will sign it, give you a purchase order number, and then you can proceed with the purchase, with the exception of you will not need a purchase order for the utilities, fuel, or if you have an emergency with a vehicle, like a flat tire, need a battery towed, jump, that you will not, you can complete this form after that situation. I don't need it for fuel for sure, because I don't need every little ticket. So I will email this out to everybody on there so we can go forward, go with our budget. Does that make
I
more
have a
sense? I've
question.
had this happen and we were using this when I first started here and kind of let it go by the wayside.
I have a question, Joanne. I have police patches on order. They're not here yet from Atwell's. And you and I had discussed it already, and you told me to have them invoice you.
Yes,
Do I
that's
have-
fine. You're fine. That's what I'm saying. Starting after tonight's meeting, you can start using these going this forward. So give me and so again, I work 7 to 3 or like my Thursdays for sure. I don't get home usually sometimes till 10 o'clock at night because every Thursday I have a council meeting somewhere
So
on it.
clarify
Ms.
for me.
Clapp,
Is
if
it
I'm
all right?
not wrong, we had a purchase order many, many years back.
What am I
We
doing with
did have a
Atwell?
form.
So before you make a purchase, so if you need to go get uniforms or a vest, like I have, somebody should be looking into a grant for the vest. So if you need a vest, before you go get the vest, you fill out who your vendor is going to be, what it is, the estimated cost. You'll forward this request for a purchase order to me. I will sign it, scan it back to you with a purchase order number so you can go ahead and proceed with the purchase.
Clarify for the patches I ordered. You told me to have them.
You are
in-
okay with that. You do not need a purchase order
Okay.
because it's already been ordered and I approved it.
And my vest has already been ordered as well. Because
But
I
there's-
asked,
No, you weren't allowed to get the vest. I told you to get quotes because we got to get a grant.
I only have one company to get a quote from.
There's a grant out there that we have to apply for. I even sent it over to Vince asking him to look into it.
Yeah, and
Because
the
I
way
don't
it
understand it.
And just briefly, the way it goes is the village of Timberlake would have to front the money for the grant for the cost of the bulletproof vest. Once everything's submitted, the state would reimburse 75%. So the village will be responsible for 25% of the vest. I just haven't gotten any paperwork on it yet other than knowing it, because I don't know how many vests we're gonna get. If we're gonna do this, it's kind of ridiculous to only get one. We should get
Right.
a few, but,
Yeah.
so that's pretty much.
I'll pay
And there's
for
a
my-
deadline, I know that.
I'll pay
Dude.
for my vest because this is something that I need now and it has to be custom made and it's gonna take 8 weeks to make it. And I only have one company to get it from and that's Second Chance. There is a point blank vest out there, but it's not conformed. It's a standard female vest. And the one I've been wearing for years is Second Chance. I was measured for the vest. They're supposed to tell me what the cost is gonna be before they start making it. I'll buy my own vest.
I have $500 in uniforms for the police department.
Okay,
So I
Yep.
can,
can I use that $500 towards the purchase of this vest?
yeah, that'll take everything out of it. Yes, you can do that.
All right,
And one other quick item is I would like to know, I actually am the HR person and I should have all employees' personnel files in my office. That's applications, everything for every employee. And and matter of fact, I can't even pay the specials, the dollar as I'm required to because I have no personal information on them.
okay. I'll have to maintain a dual file for the police department because there are documents in those files that cannot go to you. Leads, printouts,
What kind?
leads, printouts, and OLEG for driver's license. That's
Hmm.
law enforcement material only.
Interesting. I have it at other entities.
You do?
Yep. I am required to sign a piece of paper.
What is the piece of paper you have to sign?
It states about the leads and information and confidentiality.
All right, since my paperwork comes from the sheriff's department, I will ask for a document from them.
Yeah, there's something that, yeah, I have to sign. Yep. Mhm.
I'll check into it.
On there. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else in closing? Okay, it is 9:56. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion.
Second,
Okay.
third, fourth, fifth.
Roll call, please.
Kim,
Oh, yeah.
Vince,
Yes.
Dr. Sharma,
Yes.
Shannon,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Okay, I thank you all for your time and have a good evening and see you at the next meeting. Thank you. Have a
Good
good
night, everyone.
Good
Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody.